Going once again to a market that is positive, but only just. If you're looking at the S&P 500 this afternoon after that dip following that 8:30 number this morning. If you missed it, we had CPI print this morning that came out exactly in line with expectations right across the board. The core number, the headline number, both month-over-month numbers and year-over-year numbers, all exactly what was predicted, so no change whatsoever. If you dig into some of those numbers, however, and we're going to talk to Frank about that coming up here this afternoon, you'll see there are still some portions of that number that are still quite high and a bit concerning, so we'll talk about that coming up. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here looking at 4.2%, Sharif, for crude oil downside this afternoon. Sharif drives a V8. It's 2% kind of an afternoon. He does. XOM, 2% downside here, just about to roll over, trying to get back to day lows. So energy stocks specifically on this board under a lot of pressure here, 1.8% in fact for XOM, CVX 1.4%. Fabian, thank you. To the downside. The rest of the group also under pressure. There's Tesla 1.7 as well, under a decent amount of pressure. Google's negative. Oracle we'll talk about here coming up after earnings, but a little bit more green than we saw on this board, specifically when it comes to the Mag 7 compared to this time yesterday. If you remember, it was big tech and specifically those Mag 7 stocks that offset basically the entire market downside when the rest of the market was higher. But overall, it is pretty flat when you look at the S&P anyways. 0.2 for the S&P, about 0.5% right now for the NASDAQ, back to the upside. Let's talk about, as I mentioned, Oracle here. If you missed it this morning, Oracle trading lower after a company reported Q2 financials. Yeah, that weren't great. I mean, it was more the forecast than the actual numbers. They came out a little bit light, and they pointed to slowing demand going into not only the end of this year, but the first quarter of next year. So yeah, we saw on the board there, where is it again? ORCL, 11.8% on that sector board downside, under a ton of pressure here, guys.
Yeah, there's no good way to spin down 11.8%. So I'm not gonna bother trying to tell you that Oracle had a good day today. The revenue miss was not necessarily what you want. We saw this in the afternoon show moving, and I kind of thought if it could get and hold 108, it had a chance today, but it couldn't do that. I had one trade in it. Maybe this afternoon we get the 100 level and there'll be a second opportunity. So Oracle down the 11%. I was looking for an SSR bounce at the 102 level.
Usually they're Sean's. He always leaves me a present.
If you take it the first time at the 102, which I did not, it was right at the open. Let's go to the 3-minute again. That's maybe easier to see. If you took it right at the open where it bounced at that 102 the first time, that was your shot. I came in for the second play on a tight stop and it just didn't go. But it worked off the even dollar if you had it at the open. You know what I was trading at the open. We'll get into that. A couple of other names, and we'll get to big tech later. But just not good for Oracle. Everyone wanted... At that point, like, everyone wants to see actual revenue growth. If you're getting some kind of a pull forward from the AI group and from the cloud space, then you want to see that revenue growth. And that one little miss, coupled with the fact that it was at a huge resistance zone and couldn't punch through, hopefully we get a bounce off the 100 level in the next couple of days. I think that's what you look for next when it comes to Oracle. Nasty, nasty move down.
Yeah, definitely continuation off the selling that we kind of saw in the after hours. We defined this trend early on during the day, right off the open, right? And it seems like it just accelerated off of this trend. We were looking at kind of these highs from post earnings consolidation, and then coming in today, not only do you follow that trend, but you also reject those consolidation lows as well underneath that 104. Now, I think we were talking about attempting that 103 hold earlier on, but there was really no follow through. But yeah, it's been nice, nicely respecting the trend that it's defined in the after hours as well as the pre-market and off the open.
GOTU, I was just noting here, popping up on a scanner in front of me. Day highs, so there's that, but decent volume behind it as well. Nothing that I can see significant on this. This is one of those online education companies, tutoring firms, I think they're called, in China. So there was some bad economic data that we got yesterday, but a huge move up here for GOTU today. So one to watch out for. Let's touch on Airbnb. I mean, it was kind of a quiet day, to be honest with you. We get that gap to the downside for Airbnb, and then it just kind of leaked the entire morning, continuing that move downside. I mean, we touched on, you and I were talking about a few reasons as to why they are still speaking negatively of this stock, but here we are. I mean, it's not a huge move, 2%, but still red.
Yeah, slowly but surely. I mean, I've been bearish on this stock for a little bit of a time, but Barclays cutting its price target to 100 from 135 and downgrading it from equal weight to underweight. It's been one of those stories where, you know, they've been kind of subject to their own success here. I mean, they grew so rapidly in urban centers, and that caused obviously some problem with the shelter inflation, and you know, cities like New York are looking to take steps to kind of restrict them a little bit. On watch is Miami, is Los Angeles, San Francisco. I know Toronto for a fact is as well. So they might be a product of their own success here, Brendo, and have their supply dwindle.
Yeah, I've used them 2 or 3 times this year already. I think we're actually going to be using them again over the holidays. So I hope they don't go anywhere, but we'll see if that ends up being the case for Airbnb.
They're fine. I'll still be using them. Look, I think, what do you mean fail? What do you have against Airbnb, Fabian? Oh, that was you, Sharif? Okay, whatever. I don't know what we have against Airbnb at this point, but look, if there's a reason, there's lots of great reasons why I think this is a great show and a great trading community out there. Now, obviously, we're gonna look at individual names that we deem the best for ourselves for trading in the morning. And I know I was talking about this with Obi. There were a lot of great setups, and I was happy with Oracle. And you look at what happened with AMD and Affirm and some of these other stocks were great. However, when we go through the list of names, we just simply identify how we would approach looking at this and identifying key levels. Like, where do you get a key level from in a sense of what can happen with it? So Sharif mentioned the lower highs in the daily. So it has been an upward trend from about November here. I guess that's like the beginning of November, and it runs into the top of that trend line and reverses yesterday. So a bit of a failed breakout, but in that pullback, if you're looking for it to continue the pullback, this is where you can find a key level. Okay, so great. On Friday, it had a low right at this 138 area. Then you go back in the middle of that week, you had resistance at that level as well, right at the 138. This is where you find a key price level. Resistance turning into support. It pulls back into that support. That's an area to look for a bounce. That's a patented bounce play in an upward trending stock. So it was an upward trending stock going into that false break. But what do you look for it to do? Does it hold a bid? It held a bid. That's one trade. It holds 138. Sure, it wicks underneath, but Airbnb is not the kind of stock that you can just go long 138.05 and expect 138 not to break. It doesn't trade that way. It's not even close to that kind of a stock, right? So when it recovers 138, you have 50 cents worth of risk. It is a clean move up with no reason to make a decision until 139.5. And that's at least $1.50. So 50-cent risk makes a lot of sense. Now, whether or not this is your cup of tea, it's how you find the levels that matter, because that's your process in the morning. Now, this was on our radar because it was on the watch list. Pulled it up, said, okay, this is the one level I would look at this morning. I wish I had taken along at that price. Didn't. There were lots of opportunities you're going to miss out on. But at least if you can identify them, you can get yourself fed every single day.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that level. I think there's nothing much more to look at here on Airbnb, other than the fact that, yeah, a little bit of a resistance and a support comes in today and respects the overall trend. So 138, Airbnb, solid level.
All right, we're just talking a little bit about crypto here. Coinbase on the move back up. I was just going to bring up Bitcoin to have a look at it, but here's 1.5%. Once again today, it was yesterday, Kathy Wood was in there doing some selling. Not a lot, 13,000 shares of coin, 13,634 to be exact, get offloaded by ARC. She also dumped 395,945 units of GBTC's Bitcoin Trust to the tune of about 12.8 million. So, I mean, it's been a monster move. I was just telling Sharif, 65% on that Grayscale Trust since October.
And almost up 3 1/4 today, Brendo. You wouldn't even
selling
know.
too.
Yeah, maybe people buying up per dip. But I was telling Brendo off camera, GBTC was first mover. They filed first with the SEC to convert their trust into an ETF. We know that ARC has filed for one as well. So they're going to be a competitor here real soon. So, you know, I'm just theorizing that she could be liquidating her position to kind of get ready for hers on that side. But yeah, great look for GBTC, up 3%. Bitcoin, again, up 1%. ETH down 2/3%.
Yeah, you can see the daily candle. Not really exciting. Very, very quiet compared to what happened yesterday on the big move down. But some of these stocks holding up definitely more strong than Bitcoin itself.
That being said, this is going to be exactly like Airbnb. Coinbase gave a very similar setup. And again, it's about how to identify key levels. This one probably a little bit easier than going into the wild on Airbnb, because yesterday's bottom was 136. And then the bottom on Friday was 136 before ripping $12. And the close on Thursday was 136. So fast forward to where it bounced today, 136. If Coinbase is what you were looking at 9:30, just as if Airbnb was what you were looking at 9:30, then you're getting that trade. Now, obviously, I know Obi's going to talk about Uber. That's what he had at the open. I had Alphabet, which we'll get to at the open. But if you have an open setup off a key level, it doesn't get too much more difficult or easy than this, where it just goes right into that level, immediately bounces off it, and any long in front is going to set up well because it's a straight shot in. You shouldn't trade the open unless you find levels and opportunities like that. Otherwise, you just find yourself whatting in the wind. But these ones are pretty obvious when they do set up. You just have to be looking at that stock at 9:30 and have been prepared for it before it comes in. Before we move on, I should probably note this. I'm only in 2 positions, Apple and Snap. Snap's probably obvious if you look at a chart. I said Snap, not Snapple. Anyways, I didn't say Snapple just now. Both you guys, oh, sorry, Adara just said Snapple. Then Sharif said Snapple. I'm like, oh, Snap and Apple. Okay, no, it's fine. It's only Tuesday. I'm a little slow. The NASDAQ is double topping here. I should have made that connection. I fully acknowledge it. Feel free to mock me all you want. I should have got that Snap and Apple, Snapple. That's on me, man. I got to be better than that. But Apple here, as the market's getting to the highs, that's an ugly looking chart because of the wicks. That's not that much better. But Apple, since breaking out that 193 half, I bought into that. I did get a tight little stop out for half, then re-entered on strength. I want this to hold above 194 if we're pushing to 95. Now, I have not reloaded this above 194, but if we can hold this high in the NASDAQ in the futures, and Apple holds on to the 194 area, I'd look for some sign to buy above and then hold this into 94 half and then 195. So plan of action, but just because we're starting to pull back, I want to let you guys know what I'm looking for next with Apple.
Yeah, the Bitcoin move definitely coming in nice support and resistance, right, Neil? I think that's what we kind of defined there. Multiple levels of support that we're holding over the previous days. Come in and hold again. Now, of course, Coinbase is doing similar things to the rest of these names because they're all pretty much related. But you can see similar story here on CLSK. Kind of this is an area of support. This is an area of support coming in. You have a strong sell. It acts as an area of support again. And today, once again, you're seeing more of the same there. So I think a lot of these levels on this Bitcoin sympathy play as of late have just been respecting some of these levels that they have already been holding over and over again. So that could be a decent look on some of these names. Again, support and resistance, OP in my opinion.
All right, Netflix and Disney end up being pretty quiet here today as well. 0.2% still positive on the day for Netflix. But if you missed it this morning, there was a positive note suggesting Netflix setting up going into 2024 a little bit better off than Disney Plus. For the ad-supported revenue side of things and potential ad revenue coming in general. But as I said, we basically come back into where we ended yesterday and have done nothing since.
Yeah, this report by Insider Intelligence is positing that we get a 50% jump next year in ad revenue for Netflix, amounting to about $1 billion. Similarly, for Disney, they're looking at growing about 16.1%. So what the whole thesis of this report was that Netflix will overtake Disney next year as the #1 streaming service with advertising revenue. But like I said here earlier in the show, that they've been kind of increasing the price for their non-ad plans, forcing or pushing people into the ad tier, because the more you watch, the more they make on those plans, Brendo.
200 billion market cap.
For Disney? Oh, I mean, for Netflix?
Yeah. Huh. I would have thought it was higher.
Same.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is Netflix, there's a theme with anything that we looked at this morning and didn't trade on the buy the dip, is that it's almost the same setup, like find key level, bounce off that level, though Netflix was not as clean as the others. Now, it's not that difficult to see. 460 key level resistance. It's hard. I don't necessarily call closing at 460 a support level, but it's a significant price. So 460 is the area you'd be looking at. The tricky thing about Netflix is it did pop down and test 459, which is also an aftermarket low. So it wouldn't have been as easy to grab that long if that's what you're looking at. Just understand that Netflix, being a $400 stock, is not the type of stock that you can just say, oh, I like the 460 level, and not find a way to win when it bounces off 459.20 or something like that. Like, that's good enough, and it goes to 463. If that's what you were looking for, there's an entry there risking that 70 to 80 cents or $1, and then capturing a couple bucks in that move. I don't think I want to trade this afternoon, so get it out of the way. I don't want to touch this. I feel as if it does break down. Like, this looks like there's a lot of room if it breaks down, but the market's at the high. So I think I'd wait for a reversal in the market to take a shot at looking at this on weakness, relative weakness. It was strong yesterday to a point, then they really sold it off. So, I mean, if I was in a long position here, I know what my stop would be if it held the low, no questions asked. And if the market rolls over, this would be a name to kind of look for an outsized move to the downside. But this market is pretty darn strong.
Yeah, I think a bit of an inside day today, but something to consider is we are making a little bit of lower highs on this chop, on this consolidation, building into again yesterday's closing price as well as today's lows, relatively similar areas there, and you can see that this was excuse me, this was resistance, this 460 a little bit earlier. You can see how strong the selling comes in earlier in December, multiple times over these levels. So yeah, that 460 kind of I think Sharif would like to call this a flat bottom break happening here with this kind of pattern. Thanks, Sharif.
Yes, he would. Let's talk about big tech. As I was mentioning when we came back on at 2 o'clock, I mean, vastly different day than what we saw this time yesterday. If you were with us 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the entire left side of this page essentially was very, very red, and it was basically everything else on the green side. So the Mag 7, if you want to call them that, definitely offsetting the entire market. We end up basically unchanged on the day, but a little bit different today. 1% for NVIDIA, Broadcom. Pretty impressive the past couple of days here. Meta back to the upside, 1.8%. But I mean, overall, Apple, Google, Microsoft not really doing much.
Yeah, unreal for Broadcom there, Brendo. It's having trouble digesting that. Yeah, the only red Mag 7 names on the day are Tesla and Google. Everything else in the green. Yesterday we had rotation out of the Mag 7 names, and the NASDAQ was rising. It was very unusual for me. But good luck. All nothing really here to say except Meta's having an outlying day, 1 3/4%. We were looking at Meta on the midday show. Very good chart.
Yeah, just noting there's a bit of an uptick there for oil once again. About 10 minutes ago over in the pit session in Chicago, but 4.08% still for oil downside.
Bring it to the ground, Brendo.
Let's talk about tech, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good trades and the bad trades that can be. Let's talk about tech.
Right.
Nice. Adara, thank you for getting that one right away. Adara, you've definitely, she's young, but she knows the old joints, and that's what it's all about. And I absolutely love it. We talked about a lot of setups this morning, which if something hadn't worked right away at 9:30 and I missed out on Airbnb, dip by exactly where I liked it, Coinbase dip by exactly where I liked it, I'll get to Lucid. Oh my goodness, I got to get to Lucid. Lucid was the easiest trade this morning. Don't care what anybody tells you. I'm going to show Lucid in a second. That was the easiest trade this morning. But Alphabet There was the bad news for them with regards to the Epic court case. On top of that, you did have a move the last couple of days to the downside. You were trending down on Alphabet as well. It closed up at 133. I mean, if you can't spot 133 on Alphabet, okay, so support there, breakdown of support, and then close at 133. Where are you going to short into? 133. So I had a couple of shorts there, including off of the afternoon support level and morning pre-market 132.5 level. The best of it got down to the next key price level, which once it broke this top here, it's like 132.5. You short it for the first 50 cents. The next move is all the way down to 131.5, where you had that bottom that got put in yesterday. Was the next key level. When you see where to hold to, you've got to look at the opportunity in the trade. And to me, if I got the short at 133, it was very clear on Google where I expected it to go to at 9:30. Now, it's been an inside day ever since, so I actually haven't traded it since. Not really doing a heck of a lot. You've got to get in there, take the opportunity where it lies. The other name, obviously, I just talked about Apple. These wicks on the chart there are kind of annoying, but there you go. I was shorting Apple 193.5. It was never better than outs at 193 even. I then flipped into the long above. I have added some higher, so I have a 64 price here as it continues to grind higher. Now, if we get past 194.5, I think this can get to 195. But I promised you this, and I said this to both the floor managers here. There was no easier opportunity than Lucid today. This is off topic, but Lucid, this aftermarket, you had the CFO leaving. You have it coming out of an index. It's a deletion on Friday. You have two negative catalysts, including one just overnight. On top of that, throw up the daily chart on Lucid, and we talk about understanding where the move can go and why it's easier to hold. If you have a game plan of where the stock can go, it's a lot easier to hold a winning trade. So it just made a top here, failing 480. The consolidation level was 410 here, with a top at just about 455 outside of this false break that just happened. So fast forward, overnight, well, in the aftermarket, you have the CFO resigning. It fails the 455 level, comes back in, bounces 435. We get a bit of a slight gap to the upside that could not break 450. So if you like the 55 level, with reason to on the daily chart, then you're short it without any problem. If you simply want to make an easy trade, pre-market spike high at 830 on the economic number, right? So at 830, the best it could do is get to exactly $4.50. At the open, it opens at 47 and gets exactly to $4.50. As a day trader, this is a short 46, 47, 48 with a 50 stop easy, or it's short twice with one stop here and another stop at 55 and no reason to cover till it gets to the quarter. You're not even on the bid till it gets to the quarter. That's a really easy setup. And throw on top of it, now this is not my words, this is a trader on the floor. If you want a third reason why you like this short, he called it a piece of crap company. If that gives you another reason to get in, fair enough, but that's the anatomy of a trade setup right there. Look, all the other setups that we talked about, they're all valid, they all work. This one is just easier. If you're a beginning trader, look at that Coinbase setup, the Airbnb setup, the Alphabet setup. Those are a little bit more complex. The Lucid setup is stupid easy. Like, that's exactly what you want to be doing as a beginning trader. Find that same notion of support and resistance and a direction, and then take the trade that you can risk 5 cents to make 25, as opposed to the one where you have the nuance of trying to trade Google at the open off of an even dollar level where it's going to jiggle around 50, 60 cents at a time. That's a lot easier and lower hanging fruit. So pardon me I get passionate about this because, like, I see the opportunity for traders that are new, and I see something like that. And I remember when I was starting out, you never wanted to miss one of those, because it was the kind of setup that it doesn't happen all the time, and it's really easy to sink your teeth into. So anyways, I wasn't really trading Lucid today. I just thought I'd opine about it there.
Nice, yeah, definitely solid opportunity missed indeed. But looking at some of the large caps here, AVGO can't stop, won't stop after that 1,000 break. Again, earnings day two, we had that push off of these highs, 950s, kind of the closing price, and then look at that strong open, and then continuation into the close, literally up and to the right, and then we're doing some more, a little bit more of that. So very strong trend continuation off of this earnings move on AVGO. Now, again, I definitely include this in big tech. Why is that? This is the constituents of the NASDAQ 100. You can see that AVGO is right there, Broadcom is right there, right underneath the top 5, I guess right after the Mag 7, if you even want to call it, because that includes Alphabet right there. So AVGO very, very strong to the upside. And yeah, did you want to say something?
No. It's Fabian's in my ear. That's
okay, all right. Yeah, so AVGO very strong to the upside as well. Now, of course, Amazon as well. We kind of talk about that 145, and I have 145 marked on my chart as a potential area of interest. As you can see, the consolidation that we've been doing sideways has been pretty much washing and kind of using this 145 as a potential core of price action. And today, right before the day of FOMC, we use that almost to the T, that 145 coming in as a support for the day, and strong bid after that. Same thing, similar thing with Apple. Apple 192 was relatively the same. We talk about support levels where we can see bidders show up again. I think the action yesterday was very significant. Straight dump off the 195, and where do we stop? Where do we finally catch a bid? In and around that 192. Coming in today, we catch that same bid and slowly grind back up to the highs again into the later half of the day. So I think a lot of these supports coming into play on a lot of these big tech caps.
No questions asked. But I'll tell you one thing that if you're short, it's going to make you sweat. That's for damn sure. That's CCCC.
Oh, I saw that.
What in the heck are we call this? Okay,
C4.
What's the name of this company?
Called C4.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I missed a pun opportunity. It's actually called C4. Okay, yeah, because I'm not going to call it CC. We're just going to call it C4. I just made a CNC Music Factory for reference because that's the first thing came to my mind. But obviously, I could have gone like CB4, like, oh my goodness. Well, okay, in my head, I was about to say a lyric that I can't say from CB4. But wow, up 123%. It was a dollar move. It is at 250. It is still churning. We talked about this in the morning show, from the clean dollar to 2. Well, the 250 level is long gone. I would point out the 200 period moving average, okay, it's at 285, but that was a significant price area anyway. So before it gets to 3, it might run into some chop, 85 to $3. It's just my 2 cents for it. So shout out to everyone that's been in this one. You're right, John from Barrie. C4 is explosive. Boom. And anybody, if you've never seen CB4, Chris Rock, before Chris Rock was like the Chris Rock you know now, like Adam Sandler, like you do funny movies and you do funny movies. But Chris Rock at the beginning, CB4 is legit. That is a great, great movie. Anyways, if you've never seen it, I think it's absolutely. I'm laughing literally thinking about it. It's got Charlie Murphy in it as well. But I gotta get to Snapchat just to explain the trade. I don't think it's that complicated. Snapchat.
Going on?
No, I mean this thing about putting the Dallas Cowboys up there, you can do that all you want. See, I'm over here. No, Sharif, if you wanna keep throwing your Dallas Cowboys flag up, just understand, right? Twice the pride, twice the fall. So the more you do this, the more pain you're gonna be in when the Bills beat the Cowboys, and then you have to do the Bring Sally Up challenge in front of everybody. And we haven't determined when we're gonna do this. I think we probably do it. I think we do it in the middle of the day, or maybe we do it in the afternoon show. But I'm just simply saying.
We have a good camera angle right here. No,
is that like a push-up challenge?
Yeah, we're gonna do the push-ups. So
okay.
The Bring Sally Up song.
How many push-ups can you do?
It's like a cadence thing. No, it's not regular push-up. Like Neil, when they say Bring Sally Up, you're in the top of the push-up. Bring Sally down. You hold
more endurance than anything.
You hold the bottom of the push-up.
Okay.
So it's the whole song is 30 push-ups, but it's to a count. And there's also I think it's 4 or 5 long counts that are longer than the 5 seconds.
Yes, exactly. There are static movements which make it much, much harder. Yes, but I want to defend myself here, Neil. I didn't do anything, all right? Now, you might find a couple of screens you may not be happy with on that computer, but I didn't advocate for anything to be on the show, I'll tell you the truth right now. You'll find out exactly when you do the what's it called? The market recap show. Q banner.
Yeah, I'll be filling in for the market recap show, but there's not going to be any Dallas Cowboy signs all over that nonsense.
Of course not. No.
So obviously, look, Streep's going to have his fun. Even if Fabian put it up there, he got it from you, so it's easily up to you. You're the one that did it. I was explaining Snapchat. So here is Snapchat between 85 and 94. What I got to do here is, look, my average price is 90, and it should be 87. So I've been taking some out in the low to mid 90s, or at least trying to. I got one fill up there, and I'll try and reload only at 86, 87 with like a really tight 84, 85 stop. Snap's been on a run. I mean, it's not bad. I feel like, look, Snapchat. Here, let me zoom this out. That's the daily chart not wanting to go. Come on, baby. Snapchat's been on a breakout, broke one level, took out a second, but I just feel when you go all the way back, now I went too far. When you go all the way back, I feel this break here from about 15.5, this 15.5 to 16 area has room to at least get to 17. And if it breaks this, there's room to 23. So I'm taking these shots. Every time Snapchat sets a breakout up, I want a piece of the pie. And then I figure the day that it makes a move to 17, if I'm focused on it every single day into it, I shouldn't miss that day. And then that way, if it breaks to 17, I'll be involved in that day as well. So I'm just involving myself in Snapchat on kind of consolidation levels. If it had taken out the top, I think I would have been in this. I think I said this in the midday show. I'd be in it if it took out 1606. So it's a stock that I want to be on. Apple continues to go. Comp SRX, you're right. NVIDIA. Arrows up, NVIDIA.
Yeah,
it's
a lot
got
of
power as well. I don't want to full screen that. It's trying to get to the high. 474 is the high of the day. All kinds of support off the 470 level. I think a rising tide is lifting a few ships here. And just to go to the higher time frame, when in doubt, zoom out. 478 on NVIDIA. I don't know if we get there. We got Fed day tomorrow. You don't usually press into levels like this, like break a top and then press past the 478 a day before the Fed. But that's the level I'm eyeballing. I mean, regardless of what happens tomorrow, I don't care. They're not going to raise whatever they say, If the trend after 3 o'clock leads to NVIDIA breaking 478, then longs above. End of story. I don't care what they said. I just care if it's strong enough to get buyers above 478 on NVIDIA. Because if it does that, next stop, I mean, maybe not in 500, but I mean, certainly opportunity to get to 500. Shout out to you, Nick Dubs. Appreciate the super chat. Can you look at ADSK? Sure we can. Didn't you? Did you look at this today?
I think. I pulled it up on a scanner earlier, but I don't think we really looked
it's fine.
at it.
I mean, the only reason I say that is I haven't looked at Autodesk today. So my first thought is, on the off chance, for some reason, I thought maybe Obi had looked at this today. And if you had gone through the levels, I'm looking at the chart for the first time today. If it's something I've gone over, then I could close my eyes and just sort of go over everything I did for my preparation. Otherwise, I'm doing this in real time, right? So it's generally pretty simple, although this looks pretty simple. Autodesk, like, look at this 225. It's in the midst of a breakout off 225. I figure that day, the 22nd had to be earnings, right? I mean, if it's got that kind of a volume spike, so you have earnings high 228, resistance 225, and it's trying to break out the 228 with a wipeout bottom 25 there. If there was more of a catalyst, it's got no volume on it. It closed above 228, looks like a great long with a stop 25, but that's more of like a swing setup because you're giving up more than 1%. So no trade unless it's taking out these highs, buyers above, of which there's nothing right now. But that's a good-looking setup. I'm just making an assumption about those earnings on Autodesk based on that volume spike. Like our chart doesn't show you the date that it has earnings, but I just checked trade ideas. Yeah, confirm it. That spike, and that's an earnings high, 228. Yeah. So you're breaking out a double top earnings high with in theory, support at previous resistance at 225. So good look. Nick Dubs, if you're looking at that Autodesk, because resistance turning into support to resistance, that's exactly what you want to look for. It's a decent looking chart in terms of relative strength, and the levels are pretty obvious. You got to like those. So the market is trying to get to the highs. Because I did not get an ad in Apple, I have to note that we're getting to the top, and we're doing that thing that Apple does, where it's struggling off the high. So there was no reload for me off the 194. But if we don't break this high of the day and we fail the high just now on Apple, I don't want this getting underneath 420 on me. So I'm going to trail out of Apple and look for the next trade. Again, everyone's style is going to be a little bit different. You know, for me, I usually have targets put on there. But one of those targets on a momentum trade, I'm not out of Apple yet. I don't know why the position board doesn't have it. I'm still in Snapchat and still in Apple. But when we get to the top in the futures, especially in a stock like Apple, if we fail that high, I want to make sure I'm not just holding it all the way back to 94 for the sake of it. Just because I'm long underneath 94 doesn't mean I want to hold it and give all of that back. So I've got a trailing stop in there. We'll look for something maybe in the chip space that we can get to. Oh, and Pranya's asking, I can update you guys on DocuSign. DocuSign was good to me today, except for the exit. So I did join the trend in DocuSign at 55. A couple of scalp trades. It was cruising, and then I was victimized by this candle. So you can using stops is fine. I use them all the time. I'll put in trailing stop if I'm getting up from my desk or something like that. But right at about noon, you know, I was up. I'm like, okay, let's just put a trailing stop in case. It was at the high of the day at 55.75. So I was getting up. I put a trailing stop in. Yep, that's correct, Fabian. The position board's corrected now. I put a trailing stop in just in case it pulled back and broke 55.50. At the time, it didn't seem like there was any chance that was going to happen. And then right at noon, it did this dump and got me out. I got back to my desk, and I kind of missed an opportunity, I think, to get back in right at here because I was up again and I was talking to some traders. But I could have got back into this. It'll be a winning trade. I reloaded it. It was all profit. We were long 55.11, and like our worst outs were in the low 30s, so it was fine. It could have been a much bigger winner, and kind of a missed opportunity there. But it's going to happen to you. I'm seeing people say that Tesla is at resistance 237. Yes, sir, it is. But do you want to short Tesla? How's about no-ish?
I mean, wouldn't you say it's more near that 238 area? Because like if you look left on the chart, 15 minutes since last week, the support is a little bit more defined on that 238. Yeah, you have wicks that come into that 237, sure, but there's a lot of candle closes and opens kind of happening in that 238, 239 area. So I think if you short up here, it makes a lot more sense for that 238 to come in, no?
That's 100% true. I did not zoom out on Tesla. Look, all I saw was someone said it's at resistance. I just looked at the morning resistance level. I mean, you could have looked at 38 here, but zoom out. Obi's 100% right. I mean, it could break 237 and simply fail at a bigger and more key level at 38. Now, it doesn't mean that 37 isn't a level on its own. Clearly, it showed that today, but 38 is just a bigger level. That's just more of a reason not to short 37, in my opinion, because it's got another dollar before I think it's at a more key price. That if you're going against the trend, make sure it's at a very, very good level. AMD 140 was an example of that.
Oh, AMD 140 was beautiful.
So I'm just going to throw that out. AMD 140 was an absolutely gorgeous short if you caught it. I'm not going to pretend that I did, but
I think it was solid. We can talk about what we saw there.
Okay,
like the size, the chasing, the lower high, like a lot of confluent break of trend.
I made one trade off of that. That's when the size seller showed up and I scalped it. But like look at 140 on AMD, trend to the upside. This is 140. It basically touched 93 and then made this pullback. Once it broke underneath 193, I think it was 39 even, sorry, 139 even, there was a seller at 130, I'm trying to remember the price here.
60s or something.
No, it was higher.
The first guy came in the 90s.
First guy came in like 96.
Yeah, he was like
something.
96.
Anyways,
yeah.
I shorted it 3 cents in front of it, scalped it out, then stopped out at break even. The scalp trade was worth about 20 cents or so, but it was like the size seller was legit right in front of 139 after it just failed 140. Just make sure you get a price tight to the size seller, stop out if it breaks them. There's maybe 50,000 shares on the offer. So I just took that trade in and out. That's the only trade I made on AMD. There was another stock that also had a big size seller that I joined today. I just don't remember which one it was. Oh, I knew there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. Affirm and $40. Sometimes you get very, very lucky. You make a really dumb mistake by not going over the, remember all afternoon, a firm $40, we spent 15 minutes talking about a firm $40 over and over again. Well, if you just simply shorted the failure at $40 today, it was pretty good on a firm. However, if you waited for it to get back to $40, it was still pretty solid. Once it broke VWAP, it literally fell all over itself until 39, which was a good bottom. But you've got to trade the key prices, and we're getting close to 40 again. I'd take one more swing at this thing, but if it breaks 40, it's probably a long. I mean, like, how many times are you gonna, like, that's an even bigger wipeout bottom than yesterday, and it's still putting in a higher low, and maybe you're gonna retest that 40. So I would not necessarily, you know, I'll take one more short if this gets to 40 bucks, but I'd leave it at that if it doesn't work. What else do we got going on here? Compressor X, teach you what? Please teach me that. I don't know what. If you mean just go back and look at the key levels from the day before, it's the most valuable thing you get from trading every single day, is the fact that you got to see these stocks trade at these prices. And if you get a chance to trade off of those key levels the day before, where did we come up with Apple 193.5? Oh, the wicks on the chart. So anyways, we came up with that because, well, that's exactly the price level it resisted in the afternoon yesterday. It's kind of hard to see because of those wicks. That was the key price level for the short today, both at the open and then at lunchtime, and that was a reversal price to go long on Apple, which I just trailed out of for a 70-cent win. So, you know, Apple, you get those opportunities because you trade the key prices. That's what you got to do. Shout out to the super chat here. Mr. Westermeyer, bringing protein ball ingredients for Sharif. Expect he will need it after Monday. So, okay, there's a bit of an inside to that. Mr. Westermeyer, thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the custom Magic 8 Ball that you gave us. He's visiting Toronto. He'll be up on Monday. Right. So hopefully we'll be able to go out to dinner. I think that's the plan of action, so we get to meet one of our viewers and longtime viewers. We appreciate it. And apparently he's bringing protein ball ingredients for Sharif. That's very kind of you. I'm pretty sure Sharif has all of the ingredients for his protein balls that he needs. I don't think he doesn't chintz out on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, his protein snacks are absolutely awesome. Like, have you tried one before?
If I tried one, I've had at least a few dozen of them. He has different iterations of them. They're all pretty delicious. Okay. You know what's also a tasty treat? Every Tuesday and Thursday, when Mr. Frank Caverna graces us with his knowledge.
I mean, what an intro. There he is, Frank Caverna, back with us from IG.com over in Chicago to break down a few things here, Frank. And it's a big week, obviously, as we were talking about when last we spoke back on Thursday, going into the Fed tomorrow. But I want to maybe jump back to Friday to kick things off here and talk a little bit about this non-farm payrolls number that we got to the upside once again, but the reaction, I think, from the overall market and from certain instruments specifically kind of told the story as to, I think, how people are feeling and how the market overall is feeling at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right off the bat, you look at equities on Friday or between non-farm payrolls Friday morning and now, and they are drifting right towards those all-time highs. So obviously a hotter than expected number from the employment data set that we got on Friday morning didn't shake stocks from their path towards all-time highs, at least if you're looking at the NASDAQ just a couple percentage points away and S&P a couple more, but still within a stone's throw. Where it really did play out was in U.S. rates and U.S. dollars. And that makes a lot of sense because the last 2 months has been, I mean, aside from a couple of blips, Brendan, a one-way journey south for U.S. rates and dollars as the inflation data and employment data has all come in under expectations, and everybody has started to price in interest rate hikes as soon as March of next year, which we'll get to in a second. But we had this non-farm number come out higher than expected. It was expected at 180,000, which the previous month was 150. The last 2 years of high inflation, we've been seeing prints in the 200 to 300 range. And so 180 would have been very normal. And if anything, you know, another 170, 160, 150 print would have maybe fueled the interest rate cut fire that's been burning the last 2 months. Instead, we get the higher than expected number, but not by much. though it was enough to cool a little bit of this crash that we've seen in dollars. I mean, you see the recent price action between dollars and yen over the last 2 months. Man, has it been a bearish mode for dollars. And then, of course, and this is just how crazy some of these events can be. And this will be leading into our U.S. central bank tomorrow. But isn't it funny that the low for dollars, the high for yen over the last few months here correlates exactly to the news that the Bank of Japan is looking at potentially hiking interest rates. And that is the turning point here for this yen for the last several weeks. Here is now the dollar's been able to bounce back ever since that news was announced. I believe it was Thursday of last week. And you can see that huge down day and then the wick of that candle being much lower than obviously where we're trading now, as dollar's been able to bounce back coming off of that non-farm. And then today's inflation number, I mean, I'm interested to get your opinion of it because it's in line with expectations pretty much across the board. But you could take a little bit of hawkishness out of this for rates in the fact that core inflation is still unchanged at 4%. And I think, you know, you and I have been talking about this the last several data points out of the US in particular, Brendan, that it seems like the market's pricing in the under going into almost every one of them. And the fact that we got numbers all in line with expectation felt to me maybe like a reason for some hawkishness, but the market kind of shrugging it off in totality, dollars and rates around unchanged as we head into FOMC tomorrow.
Yeah, agreed, 100% across the board. I think, you know, if you dig into the report itself, it was really energy. And outside of energy, everything was a lot higher, I think, including housing, than everyone was expecting. But there was a 24% decline in energy. So thank God for that, or we probably would have seen, you know, a slight uptick overall in that number. But yeah, 100% agree. You know, market unchanged, yields unchanged, dollar unchanged going into, you know, and I said it this morning when we came on initially in the pre-market this morning, I think we hear exactly the same language from Fed Chair Powell tomorrow, because why not? I don't think enough has happened to get him to shift, you know, focus, even though the market continues to price in the fact that these cuts now are coming maybe even sooner than that, you know, May kind of timeline, May, June timeline that you and I were talking about.
Yeah, and maybe it is a little bit of the quiet period. Obviously, markets aren't quiet going into FOMC. Markets are open and moving around like any other Tuesday. But maybe the market in general not wanting to push one way or another, even though it's a high level number like a CPI inflation going into tomorrow's FOMC. Because, yeah, I'm right there with you. I would have expected that this number would have maybe undid a little bit of the last couple of weeks, last couple of months at this point since October, given that, yeah, a core inflation at 4% still and not moving month over month here is nowhere near the 2% target. I mean, it's closer than a year ago, but it's hard to believe that Fed Chair Powell is going to tomorrow start talking about interest rate cuts and set the table for a cut in one of the first two meetings of 2024, which is what's priced in, at least with close to a 50% likelihood, given that, yeah, this core inflation is still higher than 2%, not moving lower. Yeah, you can see the odds here still around 50-50. Now, are they less than 50%, especially coming off of last week pre-non-farm? When we looked at this last week, Brendan, it was more of like a 55-60% chance of a cut in March. And now that's backed off to about a 55-60% chance of no change in March. But I'm, once again, still kind of surprised that it's even near 50-50 for a cut in March, given that core inflation still at 4%, not moving as of today. Headline inflation It's down a little bit, but 0.1%, and maybe getting sticky here before it gets down into that 2 handle. And we have tomorrow's meeting, and then just a couple more employment data points and one more FOMC meeting before this date comes up. This is rapidly approaching. And so, what does this all mean for trading and where we're going, especially tomorrow after Fed Chair Powell either says exactly what he's been saying, like you just iterated, and I would tend to agree with. And I think that would be perceived as hawkish, as, like I say, the time between now and March is lessening here. If that happens, I have to imagine that you see interest rates jump a little bit tomorrow, dollar jump a little bit tomorrow. Stocks, I'm really interested to see what happens if there's no talk of an interest rate cut and there's continued talk of, core inflation still at 4%, still sticky. We're still monitoring that and still keeping rates higher because, I think pricing out that any chance of a rate cut in March, Brendan, will be felt throughout all the rest of the asset classes.
So is this just the case of, as everything seems to be, this day and age where everything is sped up, the opinion of the overall market is sped up, and then once it starts going in that direction, it's hard to reel it in a little bit because, we were talking over the past couple of weeks about the fact that the market has moved so much, not only in the past month and a half, but this year in general, specifically tech stocks. But like, what is it here that, the market is just not getting the message as far as they're not there yet? As you just said, 4% is not 2%. 4% is not even halfway to 3% from where we were just a few months ago.
Yeah, I think the stock market has actually become pretty much uncorrelated from the story in rates and Forex and everything else here, as I think single stock stories are really taking over once again. You point out the fact that these tech stocks are doing exceedingly well. If it's not NVIDIA, it's now AMD. It's all these different tech stocks that are leading NASDAQ closer and closer to that all-time high number, and they're very, very close. But when it comes to the story in rates and in Forex, and especially in rates, when you see a probabilistic curve like that, Brendan, whereby it's still around 50-50, but to your point, inflation not at a 2% target that would correlate to cutting interest rates, and no real prevailing sentiment in the market that's saying that there's a need for loosening of the Fed's activity here. To me, it seems like there's just a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it premium, like the options traders out there know so much about how duration and option premium and volatility works. And to me, I see that curve for March, and it's still being 50-50, even though Fed Chair Powell has not talked about cutting interest rates, still talking about making sure that inflation moves lower, and inflation is still not at 2%. And I think to myself, man, that might get baked out really quickly, especially after an event like tomorrow. And you've seen some of this get baked out of the long-term plans as well. That's why I'm surprised it's still in that March piece, because you look out to December of next year, and if you rewound to the middle of last week or 2 weeks ago, you would have seen almost a 50-50 chance between sub 4% and above 4%, and now 76% chance as of today of a 4 to 5% rate, so above 4% by the end of 2024, as they're starting to price out that more cuts in the next year. But again, I'm still a little bit confused as to why there is such a high likelihood for March. I think tomorrow will really either bake that out or keep it in if he does reference cuts, which I don't think you and I, either of us, think will actually happen there. But in terms of the stock story, it might just be a good day trade tomorrow, no matter what, because it feels like stocks are in that perfect type of situation where it's like, if he doesn't talk about cutting rates, that means the economy is still strong and we're still seeing those good numbers that we've seen over since the pandemic, essentially. And if he does talk about cutting rates, of course, we love that, especially if we're tech stocks. So it'll be really interesting to see where interest rates and dollars land, because that might be a little bit more of a trend trade. In terms of stocks, and I want to hear your opinion on this. It seems like, especially that NASDAQ is eyeing 16,600 and making almost a beeline towards it, as we're only a couple hundred points off.
Yeah, Sharif and I were having this conversation a little bit earlier today, in the sense that, does this even really matter at this point? Because it seems like people have kind of moved on and are not paying attention. Obviously, 4% is still a lot of inflation, so prices are not coming down in the way that everybody wants. But yeah, it's only a matter of time. It's not if, but I think when we get to all-time highs once again, not only for the NASDAQ, but I mean the Dow's basically there at this point. No one watches the Dow, if anyone does. It's only a matter of time for both. But as we said, what is it going to take to actually get this moving in the right direction? And do we see a slight uptick once again? Look, I don't want to sit here and sound all doom and gloom, but it was never going to be a straight line up and then a straight line back down. So obviously there's going to be speed bumps along the way.
No, that's why I agree with you, and that's why I am kind of alluding to this like mysterious March probability, where it's like, if a little bit more time runs out, or for instance, we get tomorrow's FOMC, he's a little hawkish, and then we get, one more inflation or one more non-farm number that's higher than expected in the next month, I think rates might bounce back pretty considerably here, because they've already baked so much out of rates and so much into, like you say, we had a straight line up in hiking rates. Now we're going to have a straight line down in cutting them. We've seen this story play out before. The market gets a little bit ahead of itself. I mean, if you go to March of this year, after the regional banking crisis, they were pricing in plenty of rate cuts by the end of this year. And we didn't see any of those come to fruition. So it's always great to look at the probabilities, especially going into an FOMC event, but those probabilities change, just like the deltas on your options, all likelihoods, all prices constantly fluctuating. And especially when you have a story where it's so close to 50-50, one of those sides is going to play out. And I really do think tomorrow, maybe teamed with the first couple of data points of 2024, will push us to that binary outcome for March. And I know people probably say, like, why is this such an important thing? Because this is the turning over of economic activity from hiking to cutting. It's a big freaking deal. And if a lot of the market has priced this in and then it doesn't actually happen, that's going to have huge ramifications across every asset class. So tomorrow is going to be huge. And like I say, those first economic data points of 2024 are going to be huge, because setting the table with a 50-50 proposition in as soon as 2-3 months from now leaves a lot to be unknown.
Yeah, I saw a few people mentioning today, the fact that this number this morning might not necessarily have any effect on what comes tomorrow. There's not going to be any change as far as the interest rate is concerned tomorrow, but do we hear a little bit more on the hawkish side of things as far as the language is concerned from Fed Chair Powell? The questioning is going to be all about what happened today.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, just to see it not even move in the right direction, that core inflation he's been obsessed with, and that 2% target, at least you could battle semantics if they get close to the 2 handle, like you talked about last week, Brendan. 4% even and not budging is not an environment for cutting interest rates. So yeah, I agree with you that the press conference tomorrow will be exceedingly interesting, given that core inflation didn't move at all. And I think the market's pricing in the fact that we're already back to inflation here. So it'll be really interesting to see what he has to say for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, get your popcorn ready. I'll be watching and listening when it's on. Frank Caberna, Director of Strategy over at IG.com in Chicago. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Brennan.
Thanks a lot, Frank. Man, I get my popcorn ready for when Frank comes on and the market just moves higher on cue. Now, somebody's got to do a study on this. Like because it's almost uncanny. Like, is it a time of day thing? Is it because it's going into power hour? What is it about Frank and pushes to the high of the day? The NASDAQ just made a top at 16.55. I'm not making this crap up. This is what just happened. So yeah, popcorn out. Obviously, we're going to be excited for tomorrow. I love having the timing of getting Frank on Tuesday, and then we get a reaction as well after we see the price action on Wednesday. I think is going to be fantastic. So kudos to Frank there for always dropping knowledge and then moving markets. You know what, actually, let me get to Rivian in a second. I wanted to first go over to Meta to set this up, because Meta it broke the high of the day like everything else. 331.50 was the previous top. I'm looking for a dip into that price if we can get it. And then the big level it's heading into is 333. So if you can't tell 333 is a thing, then look at the chart. I don't know. It speaks for itself. Ball don't lie, price don't lie. Even 34, I would argue, is another shot to short the stock. So if it gets to that 33, 34 without having found a long, fair enough. I probably look for a short in that area. I'm looking for one good dip buy going into it. Then Rivian, I mentioned. Wow, Rivian. Anyone that caught the bottom on Rivian, A, congratulations. B, why didn't you tell me about it? So Rivian, we had it short. Now we're back short pretty much at the same levels we started. It went 1840s down into 1775. And it's right back up here now. I was going to wait for 1840. Then I saw it curl off the 30 level. So I grabbed the short at 30 with a very tight stop. It's already given me 20s. So I'm looking for it to bust VWAP and give me the 10s. I saw someone in the chat put something in there. I don't know if they were talking about Rivian. They said don't short linear moves up. I generally agree with that. So I'm not thinking this gets into the low. Any kind of when I say a linear move up, there's nothing parabolic about this. That is very steady buying. And when you get it at a key price level, I just want to play the pullback it gives me. In this case, VWAP, great. If it breaks VWAP, I'm looking for just underneath it. And there won't be a reload at the same price. As a matter of fact, if I get VWAP again, I'm just going to take it all out now that I see it start to show strength. Linear moves are telling you there's a certain type of buying which is not out of control. If you're shorting a strong stock, you want it to get to an exhaustion point, wipe that out, and then even like the quick fall off that exhaustion point gives you a bit of an out. So like a press into that 333, 34 area on Meta, that would make some sense. When AMD got to 140, if you look at the difference between it's a very linear move on AMD up, but it got to a monster level and started going a little bit, not parabolic, but it started to accelerate into the 140 level. But it's linear the entire way. You're just getting destroyed if you're shorting it the entire way to the upside. You want those big spikes up that can get quickly faded. But Mr. Westmeyer, that 333 is incoming on Meta. Let me just cancel the dip buy. Not going to need that, all right? Definitely not going to need it. You're short Oracle, eh?
A little bit.
I did not notice that.
Huh. No, I mean, I just trying to get with the trend here on the day, right? That's kind of practicing a little bit more of that. Tried to get, I did short, I guess some people were asking during the midday, what was your position? And I said you had to tune in later to figure it out. But yeah, no, I took the short on the AMD after it rejected the 140, and then you see the size kind of chasing it down as well. Neil talked about that, and you got the lower high, but I missed all of those, and then I'm looking at this consolidation right here at that 38.5 and get a little short while the trend is respecting. Do I hold for the move? Absolutely not. I got to get better at doing that. But clearly, this is a much better, much cleaner trade than attempting to long all of this chop in the morning. Again, had to be patient. I was chasing. Here, I actually waited. I was patient. I didn't chase the 140. I understood that, okay, well, sellers are a little bit stronger here off that rejection. And then you also break that trend, right? You can see that trend from the morning momentum that we had never broke the moving average. range. This is a 3-minute I'm looking at, but if you look at any other time frame, like a 5-minute or a 15-minute, it doesn't really break until this kind of happens and we start to go a little sideways. So then I'm like, okay, well, trend is clearly a little bit over there. The trend is definitely bent. It broke, and now we got sellers on the board. The tape is different. The bid isn't really holding, so you get in short. And do I hold it? Not really that much. Got to get better at the hold. No real reason to kind of sell, or sorry, no real reason to cover. The whole point of the trade was getting in 138 halves underneath this consolidation, and we never broke back above that consolidation. So as of right now, no real reason. And I did try it again, attempt at this level right here, this kind of support, maybe some resistance happening here. I did observe some strong selling coming off, and I'm like, okay, even though we're kind of curling right back up, I tried it. This is, again, I admit this is a little bit of a counter trend. So I was like, oh, peace off. I'm doing what I said I wouldn't. So I kind of stopped out right there. Only gave it a couple of tries. Didn't want to get too aggressive, as clearly we're doing a little bit of a bounce off 136. And not only that, if you guys are observing anything about the ES and the NQ, the futures are making new highs going into power hour. Right, we're about 6 minutes into power hour, and we've started printing some new highs of the day, especially on NQ. ES still has a few more points to get there. You got that wick top from the morning, in and around that. What is that? Let me just move this over a little bit.
Holy crap!
Yeah, so it's pretty much knocking on the door of what is this, 4,700 roughly. On the ES, and that 16.5 blasting through there, Neil. Well, all-time highs on NQ, pretty much right there. We're only about a couple 100 points away, and yeah, it's just absolutely amazing. We were talking about this in earlier this year, kind of like, oh, are we ever going to get back there? Highly unlikely was a term a lot being thrown out around a lot. But take a look at the market. Absolutely beautiful, nice rip all the way back up up towards all-time highs there on the NQ. And again, a lot of things are running. Apple almost there as well. Kind of softy Meta knocking on the door as well.
Meta just very quickly here, guys. I mean, Meta, that 333. I have some chop in here, but every single trade I put on, I actually risked less than 10 cents. So talk about tight stops, but I did take, I have to, for the approach of, let me take 2 or 3 swings at something with a really, really tight stop, and if it works right away, great. But the 334 is a big level as well. So this is, should we have gone long at 332? Yes. Could you have gone long at 333? Yes. Did I do it? No. Now I'm not chasing this move. It's getting very parabolic, and I have no idea. I mean, there's no specific news on Meta. Sorry, I'm just checking my Twitter feed, and I'm going to also check Benzinga, just to be sure, because this is accelerating. It's now $2.50 coming into this 334, and I don't want to be caught. I want to get caught off guard here, just in case there is something behind that move. So we're pretty close to that 334 now. I'm not going to put anything on until this loads up and tells me that I don't see anything, because that's what matters, man. At the end of the day, I'd rather not trade blind. I see nothing on Meta specifically. I do know that Pranya, that Aunt Kathy did buy Meta. She already had a position on it. It was like 10,000 shares. I mean, that's not really a ton. I think they already held it, but wow, we were screaming into this 335. This is insane. It's definitely getting parabolic. Remember when I just said careful shorting linear moves? This is not linear anymore. This is going a little bit parabolic on Meta. So I do want to respect the pullback type trade. If I can get some weakness underneath 334, oh no. Oh, that was so close. Yeah, that was. Anyways, I almost just hit an extra zero on Meta. That was very close, but I did cancel the order and put the right price in. So just got 89s in here. Local high 334.05. Just double checking. The futures are still breaking out that top. Just like 333, I think I'd take a few swings at this. But until it gets to 333.5, then I don't think we take anything out. And then 333 even. Like, just give me the dollar. This is a super strong move here on Meta. Rivian's looking okay. Snapchat's not going anywhere. Apple is almost at 195. Oh my goodness, should have stayed in that Apple long as well. Wow, that is pretty intense. That's pretty intense. And again, do your own. Like Hans, Breyer, generally speaking, I'm going to be I try to follow the trend as much as I can, but I'm not seeing an opportunity to go long in this stock up at 334. I just don't. So there's different types of setups that you can put in there. Fading is one of them. My particular style of fading is to find a very, very, very tight stop to the point where if I lose 3 times and win once, I should be up on the stock. That's generally the risk to reward I'm looking for on a fade trade on a parabolic mover. It's my style. I don't understand people will trade it differently, but I'm not looking to be a hero that fades into this entire move. Like, I'm looking to go for it at 33. I'm looking to go for it at 34, take my scalp out of it, and then see if I can get the win. Now there's a buyer at 333.70. If it can press under this buyer, even by a little bit, I should be able to get the fill. But it doesn't seem to want to break this. Like, think about how strong that is. It doesn't even want to break this buyer at 70. We're talking 333.70 when it just made a $3 move to the upside. So that's legit. That is legit. Like, someone who's refreshing 30 cents off of the high on a $333 stock as it's trying to pull back. That's intense. This is probably going to make a run at that high of the day. I could have just been out there for like a 30-cent win. Looking at that tape, and I wasn't quite fast enough to do it, but that's like, okay, of course. The second I get on the bid in front of 71, it goes up to 85 and wipes all the way to 60s. So everyone else saw that strength. Someone used that opportunity to wipe the bid out. Now I'm going to back off to 333, see if we can't get that. And again, everyone do you. It is what it is. Shout out to Manuel. I haven't even looked at Alphabet since we went over the morning trades. Let me just move Meta to another level too, and then go to Google. That's nice and weak. If the market fails the highs, I do like a short setup in Alphabet. I would have loved 133, but you can do worse than a VWAP failure on a relatively weak stock. So I'm going to put Google up somewhere I can monitor that pretty closely. Because if we do pull back, you can have a very gimmicky tight stop short up here on a parabolic mover, or you can have a sit in it and this should just work if we pull back in the afternoon type of trade, and that would be Alphabet. Rhodesy saying it's dump time. Oscar saying Nvidia short. I'll tell you this much. If I'm trading short Meta 334 when it's making this move, I would not compound that by trying to play Nvidia at the same time at 475. Nope, not going to do it. That's the equivalent of shorting both GameStop and DWAC and Funware all at the same time. Like, you're asking for it at that point. You make one mistake. If you make a mistake on a stock which has a chance to hurt you, well, even a keystroke error, my stop is misplaced and I missed it, I only have one thing to worry about when I'm punching out. Now, if I make that mistake, and there goes 334, there's my out. So that ends up actually being not a bad trade because I got that fill at 71, and then we take the rest out for like a 10-cent hit. So it either works right away or it doesn't. We're going to take a hit on the 333 a couple times, but at least that 334 trade, we're able to get something out of it. There was buyers up at that top. But I don't want to be trying to manage two things that could hurt you if you miss a stop order. That's the way I like to think about it. Like Snapchat, which I'm sitting in, I don't even have to worry about right now. If I miss my stop on Snapchat, I'm probably able to just punch out at 82 if I miss my 85 stop. It's not the end of the world. It's like if you're trading in Intel, it's the same sort of thing. But if you go Meta and Nvidia short at the same level and one of those misses and you're on the wrong stock, that's an extra $1 that you weren't looking for, that you could be out. And believe me, I've done it before. That's happened to me where you're like, oh crap, now I'm punching. I got stuck in, was it Morgan Stanley during an earnings call? Okay, I didn't really pay attention to the fact the earnings call was on. I got really lazy in my preparation, and my stop triggered, and there was no liquidity because the earnings call was on. So when it ran a key level, I mean, the spread opened up, my stop fired, didn't hit anything, and then I had to flip over to the level 2, because I wasn't even on the stupid thing at the time, and manually punch out for an extra 1% to the downside. So you always want to be making sure, if it's a liquidity trap or a really volatile stock, that you don't necessarily overextend yourself. If you're trading multiple symbols, you don't need to have 2 or 3 of them that are way too dangerous in terms of potential volatility. I'm not saying Nvidia would break 75 and go right to 76, 77. If it was that obvious, I'd just take it long every single time. It's just the fact that the market's at the highs. You don't need to take that risk. Just focus on the one stock at a time if you can. Meta is still looking good. Greg Newman's asking Oracle 100. The good news about Oracle 100 is I know if it'll get there because it'll be short. But
I
yes,
don't know
I like
that,
Oracle at 100. It's just it has to get to 100.
Yeah, I think so. We kind of made again great advice there, Neil. Pretty solid advice. Neil always dropping the gold on how to kind of manage your positions and think about some of these moves on the day. But yeah, no, I don't know so much about the Oracle 100. We are kind of building up into it, but we've made a bottom here at that 170, and we're kind of chopping and churning around this 101 right now on the day. But yeah, markets are pushing highs. That's something to consider as well. Apple new highs, Amazon new highs on the day, absolutely crazy. I wanted that 145, didn't really have it there. It gave it to you right in the pre-market off the opening imbalance after the opening imbalance at 925, and then doesn't even look back. Here, take a look at this clean trend to the upside on Amazon today. Very clear. Look at that, dips into that 145. Pretty much what's the low there? 145.08, 09. Very tight. Gives it about a 10 penny range above that, and just wicks right back above. Holding on to VWAP, which also happens to be yesterday's high consolidation, slowly trending up all the way back up to some of these levels here. Now, this morning, I talked about how Amazon is in this range between this 144, 143 into that 148, and we're seeing a little bit more of the same here. Yeah, sure, there's chop on the day. Yeah, sure, there's a little bit of slowness. It takes forever to get back up there, but the move, nonetheless, the price action is still very valid, well within this range here on Amazon. So I think that's a pretty solid push there. But yeah, markets are raging to the highs again. Maybe tomorrow is FOMC. If you guys remember. Yeah, tomorrow's FOMC, so maybe some positioning happening going into the number. Who knows? But definitely a strong and slow and strong move, kind of grinding all the way up on a lot of these large caps today. So Apple's done the same. Microsoft is still holding underneath that 73 there, Neil.
You gotta be kidding me again?
Yeah, it's
sorry, that was unrelated.
Okay.
No, okay, so. Apologies. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just speaking out loud. There's still a buyer at 333.70 on Meta. I got right back in, another tight stop short. I grabbed 90s with a stop just above 334. Again, I'm not even giving it to the high of the day. I'm stopping out just above the even because I want to keep the risk really tight. And once again, buyers right at the 70 level. It breaks 70, gives fills in the 60s, and then someone brings the bid right back to 333.70. This is wild. The problem, I understand, a lot of times you want to join buyers in a trend, but 333.70 long with the high of the day 50 cents higher and the last breakout and consolidation $3.50 lower is generally speaking not a long buy. It's not a dip buy that I've ever really. I haven't done that since like 08. Back in 08, you'd see stuff like that. You'd buy dips and you'd fade moves up that were ridiculous because it was 08 volatility. But that kind of a go into the long on a consolidation just because somebody else is buying that high, that's too high. So I'd rather just risk 15 cents on the short and maybe it does more than give me 25. I'm getting 25 cents and then looking to hold for $1 or just under the dollar, and I'm risking the 10 to 15 cents up there to do it. I just don't want to put that long in. What I did do, which is probably smarter, okay, not probably, it kind of just is. All right, so I'll be the first person to admit you guys are all right. Every single person that would have said, why don't you short something weak or that was making sense, just do that, well, there's Google for you. So short something that's underneath VWAP as the market's at the high, and it shows you, try to break VWAP, lower high. It's the same time that Meta was trying to break the top and the NASDAQ made a little bit of a curl. Grab some 20s in here just underneath the 20s. I'll play to the evens. I think if it breaks the evens, you could see 131, 60 or 70, just where we got out this morning. So Google looking pretty good. I still think Meta can break down, but I'm not willing to put up a bunch of risk in the afternoon just to go for it over and over. I'd rather go in and out on a tight stop if it works than try to make one big hero trade against the grain. Could be wrong about that. I've been wrong before, but let's see what happens here, Meta. It just got a couple of cents above 334 and managed to hold and not actually take out the stop, which is good because my stop was literally 3 cents away from where it just went, but we'll see if this can hold. Super, super strong move. Google, probably the easier one to get into. Oh, Apple I meant to get to. This will stop out whenever it stops out. I have my stop in. I got one take profit, and we'll see if we get a second one. But Apple did not get to 195. Let me zoom it in, get rid of that wick for you guys. But at the half, it has pulled back. So now that I'm out of Meta again, because it just ran the high again, tight stops, that's the way to go for me, so keep it small there. Apple probably better. 194 half, it's putting in a lower high instead of continuously pressing the high. This is where we trailed out of the long underneath 194. So I think if it bounces here off the quarters and can't get back to the high of the day, then I can put in a lower high short and give it to 194.50. So that's a much better setup. I'll hold on to Google because Google looks pretty good. Super SPAC Man saying shop may be another target, but you already have a good amount on. Well, I'm not doing Meta. I don't think I'll do Meta again. Like, you know how easy it would be just because I'm getting the first fill out, so I'm getting first take profit that I'm looking for the hold. So the last two have actually been okay. It'd be easy to take a third crack at this, but if I can find something better, I absolutely would. Like, I think if it goes to 335, I'll be pretty happy that I had tight stops in here and then didn't really try holding for much more. A lot of times the first move I'd hold to 330, 350, but it was the buyer at 70 that had me taking any fill I could get, like 65 to 60 to 70, because they just refresh it back to that level. It wasn't getting to 50s. After that first time it got to 50s, the buyer was holding it anytime it would break 70 even. So you get like a couple of cents beneath 70, and then it would go right back above. So you had to take profit if you were trying to make the win on the trade up there. And that is just Meta. What else we got going on?
I think, was it Jag in the chat saying, please talk about Roblox. But okay, so I pulled it up, and it's doing some strong moves there today. Neil kind of covering into, I don't know what happened on Friday last week, but a strong pop and drop, kind of washing all those same prices.
Let's not talk about that
on Friday on Roblox. I don't know if this was it doesn't look like an earnings move, but regardless, the price action is very interesting. Kind of a bid coming in even on Friday and yesterday as well. Nice little consolidation coming in today. That 40-40s level, roughly, if you want to call it 40-20s, just on top of that 40 level, holds very, very strong, and that bid comes right back in, kind of coming in and topping out near the high of the range from last week as well. So a nice strong move there on Roblox. I don't know what's really fueling this move here, but I guess, what does this say? Some news from 4 days ago. I guess
it was an Adidas deal. Well, also
Nicki Minaj?
So about that, you asked what happened on Friday. Hi, I'm Neil. I was long the top on Friday on Roblox. It happens. The good thing about Friday was I had like 3 breakout trades, and 2 of them went about as poorly as they could go. That said, it only took the one that worked to make up for it. That's the idea. That's why when you see me trade Meta the way I do, like, that's the style of trade for me. Like, I don't want to put myself in a position where I need to be 9 out of 10 to win. It's a harder way to trade. But so Roblox, look at 42. I tried the breakout of 42. Snapchat just came out. It broke 85. I'll get to that in a second. But this 42, sometimes it's resistance until it isn't. And you look for the breakout trade. It did get above 42. It looked like there were buyers for a hot minute above. They trapped me long, and I got stopped out. And because it was a position I really liked, I had added on the way up. And you can see, it was the only good thing about it is I did not try adding more when it broke down. Like, once it got past 41.80, I was stopped out, and that was it. Like, I was long above 42 twice. But if you tried buying into that move, I mean, you can see what happened. If it breaks it out tomorrow, I probably go for it again, because a lot of people got rinsed on that trade and might be skittish of doing it. But you got to be able to just trade the trade that's there. I don't care. It sets up again for the same breakout long. I take the same breakout long. There's room to $45. It's in your playbook. You do it. You just got to grit your teeth. If you get a certain look from the defense, I'm not a quarterback, but if you follow football, it doesn't matter if the last time you got that look, you misread it and you threw a bad pass. You get it. you hit that crap and make sure you hit the open man. Sometimes you get bailed out when you don't hit the open man, like Gabe Davis trotting into the end zone for a game-winning touchdown. And every now and then, my new favorite player in the world, Kadarius Toney, bails you out for things like that. In the market, there is no Kadarius Toney who's going to line up off sides and bail you out. You actually have to make that winning pass or get that winning trade if you want to get profits. The market's not just going to hand you a winning trade because you happen to miss something earlier. And I'm not making this up. Like, I might buy a Kadarius Toney jersey, straight up. Like, if you, and the best part about it, if anyone that watched that Bills game, that dude lined up the offside the same way like 4 times in that game, and they didn't even call it. So he had every reason to be surprised because they weren't calling it. First off, how do you even line up offside 4 times as a wide receiver when you barely play? You're not even on the field, bro. But thank you very much. I really like that guy. He's super talented, by the way. He was a great player at Florida, and I'm a huge fan of his talent. He could have been the next Percy Harvin. He could still be, but thank goodness that guy lined up offside, because Travis Kelce, what in the hell did you do pulling the rabbit out of the hat? Like, what the hell was that play? I'm going to catch the ball 30 yards down the field. Then I'm going to turn around when the defense comes and throw a perfect spiral to a streaking wide receiver for him to just run in the end zone. Like, what weird Madden game are you playing where you can actually do that to NFL players? But anyway, it doesn't matter because there was a penalty on the offense for offsides, and then Patrick Mahomes had to cry about it. Anyways, it doesn't really matter. It was fun for me and for Bills fans, and if you're a Chiefs fan, I apologize. That's a really rough way. I can't even finish that sentence. It's a rough way to lose a game.
Nice.
I can't even. I want to be nice about it, but it must have hurt for Chiefs fans. But I was on the cloud. My wife was like, my daughter, we're at the dinner table, and I have the game on in the family room, and we're eating dinner. We have like a no TV rule, but the Bills are the only reason we ever break it, and the Blue Jays. And my daughter's like, "What just happened to Daddy?" And then my wife just says, "Your father's reacting too much to a game of football." And my daughter said, "Are the Bills winning?"
Nice.
She's 6. Are the Bills winning? And I'm like, "Yes, they are, sweetheart. Yes, they are." That was like, I'm telling you, there's moments in your life that you will never forget. I did the same thing when the Buffalo Bills broke their playoff drought, and we needed Cincinnati Bengals to win, and they threw like a ridiculous complete fluke pass, and Tyler Boyd ran in the end zone. Thank you very much. I'll never forget you, Andy Dalton, for that pass, and Tyler Boyd as well. Put the Bills in the playoffs. I did laps around my house, was jumping up and down, almost broke some stuff, and my wife just looked at me, and she just starts shaking her head like, what the heck is wrong with this man? But that's fine. I love the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, okay, anyways, that's enough of me.
I mean, we all love different things, and I guess go sports. I mean, you're getting very emotional about the game there, which is solid. It shows your passion and it shows how much you really love your team. But that's pretty. I think that's pretty solid there.
Go sports. Holy crap, the market's strong.
Yeah, the market is pretty strong here. Kind of pushing into that last last half hour of the day here, coming into high of days. That 195 was definitely interesting on the Apple. I think this 475 is also pretty interesting here on Nvidia. A little bit of a level as well, and Softy kind of pushing up towards its highs as well. So let's see. Amazon. Oh boy, I keep looking at that Amazon chart and getting a little bit of FOMO because I have that 145 level marked, and I'm like, okay, well, it gave you the best price, and it only stuck around there for a few seconds, literally off the open. Now, I know I keep on saying this, but some of the good prices there, Neil, they don't last very long, and it's like when you miss it, what I'm trying to figure out is like, okay, well, we understood that 145 could be an interesting price, and when bids step up on top of that 145,
they're ready in advance.
Yeah, they're there in advance. So how can I get involved if I miss that trade on the 145? Like, do I look for consolidations? Do I look for continuations? Like,
yes,
if it. No, I understand that in theory, but like in practicality, like what is the true confirmation in terms of like price action and candlesticks forming that really confirms the idea that, okay, maybe I missed the trade and this is not as much of a chase as I think it is up here.
The only thing you can have is when people say have multiple tools in your toolbox, like trading setups, you have to have a bunch of trading setups that you've seen that have worked. And you only get that through experience. You can't just say Amazon is a long and then start trying to find setups that you've never done before or that you've never seen work. You've just got to find something that does work for you. Now, all I would say is the only one that would have been in my playbook, because 145 is there, at 9:30 you should be ready for it. The simple answer is at 9:30, if this is your stock, then at 9:30 you're not looking at a different level too. And when you see it bounce off 145, there's an optimal chance to be able to get quarters and get 50s. But what's the higher low that it made? Now it opened 40s, here. The opening price on Amazon is 145.52. This is a setup that you can easily take. Go to my chart for a second. This is a setup you can have. The early look for the imbalances, 280 million to sell. Yeah, sell imbalance, huh? We'll see about that. But 104. So here's 145.50. That's where the stock opened after holding 145 in the pre-market on a dump. It then dips, and this is at almost 10 o'clock. It dips into 145.50. So my answer to you would be, oh well, you missed that move. You weren't ready for it. You didn't get it. Sit there and wait, and wait, and wait some more. And then when it bounces off the opening price, you can be long at 145. It looks like 65 or 70. Okay. That's it. That's 25 cents worth of risk. The move goes into 40s. That's a good 70-cent move on the initial move. That's going to give you a 2-to-1 easy, and then you can still hold on to the trade. You can probably add to it as it holds VWAP there, and now you're at the high of the day. That's it. So what? You missed that early move. There isn't another trade that even remotely looks good until it shows that support at the open price. And if that's the case, then who cares? Then miss all that. If it just goes up here, doesn't set up another long, which it could have by cleaning out 47 and just going higher to 50. That would have been a possibility because 47 is a level. But that's it. You just don't try to reinvent the wheel or make up things on the fly. I've made up trades on the fly plenty of times. I made up a trade on the fly yesterday, and I went over the entire thing in detail on Macy's, how one mistake on Macy's was the difference between losing as much on a buyout that I would normally make on a day instead of being flat if I had traded it right. I could have been wrong the entire day and slightly up on Macy's, if not for one trade where I made up a setup out of nowhere because I was anchored to an entry price that I didn't need to be. Back in Alphabet here, we just had a kind of wick to VWAP and back under, so I grabbed some 18s and 19s again. Well, 19s, I had 18s before, but the buying is stepping up. Now, this is the only stock that, okay, well, there's probably other things too, but this is underneath VWAP and showing me a resistance level underneath VWAP on weakness, which I do like a little bit better. And Steve G, you're absolutely right, but I'm not going to hit that button. You know what I got to do? Well, come on. Where is it? No, I didn't hit the countdown. Oh, goodness. We'll get that off. That's what we're doing. That's OLA. I don't want to hit the OLA. I thought I coded that one to the new one. Hit the new one for me, because I thought I had it set up, and apparently I don't.
New one.
That's
I'm
frustrating. No, we'll get it right in a minute. You guys all saw it. Hit the fool.
Oh.
Hit the like and subscribe button. See, the problem is I broke character at the end.
That is sick.
That's my bad. I should have stayed in character at the end of that one. I love the A-Team. A-Team was a heck of a lot of fun back in the day. If you've never seen the show, B.A. Baracus was Mr. T. So I just took some out of Google there. Got to watch out for this. Looks pretty strong. Steve G, I don't actually own any gold chains. Well, I probably do. If I look back, I mean, I probably had some jewelry in high school that I thought was cool, but you know, I don't run that chain game. None of that nonsense for me.
Yeah. No, I'm just thinking back. I was a little bit more.
You were a chain guy?
No, I wasn't really a chain guy. I was more of I guess the baggy pants and the oversized shirts.
That was everybody.
Kind of living the gangster life. Listening to a lot of G Unit. Was my thing in high school, but yeah, the market's super strong.
That's definitely how I see you, G Unit for sure.
We've gone through some phases, all right. We've gone through some phases,
Wow.
but we saw about that 475 level on I was going to say Netflix there. Nvidia there again. The idea was to get short if price holds underneath that 475, and when we kind of bid right back up through it, I just sit on the bid because it is pretty liquid. It's printing both the bids and the offers multiple times, and also a lot in between the spread as well. So yeah, you can pretty much got out for about less than 15 pennies there on that 475 pop back up, and when it does go through, it just slapped up like up into the 475.50. So glad we got out with a little bit of a paper cut instead of a nice gouging there on off that 475. But again, the market's looking a little bit weak there, kind of coming right back in, a bit of a pullback off the trend. Again, with only about 25 minutes left on the day, the market has been quite strong going into the close here. Let's see whether or not we continue this strong trend. Again, this moving average is still up here from when I pulled it up on AMD, and now it's kind of helping with the information there of Nvidia is holding on to the 9 EMA, very, very strong trend. So all that's telling me is that I should be as nimble as possible on the shorts there if I am looking for a little bit of a pullback. And right away, I can see that it just trades right back through that 475. But you know what? I'm good with that initial try. I see the pressure that kind of took it through that 475. If we turn around here, that's perfectly fine. I think I've missed that chance a little bit there. I think it might have been better to take it on the way back down after it does pop in, but I thought that's what I was initially doing. But you know what? I'm done with that trade. 475 seems like not the best place to interact with. If the market's going to stay strong here, again, with only about 24 minutes now kind of into the close, and we're pretty much still printing above the highs or previous highs on the NQ there. So I do want to stay as nimble as possible on the shorts there, even if we do take a little bit of a pullback. But so kind of to go over some of the ideas that we had earlier today and some of the trades that we took, Uber not as strong as the rest of these names. So that 63 looking very, very nice there. It's been catching a little bit of a bid every day off of this 61, and then we kind of step up onto this 62, and now we're making a little bit of a level on this 63. So going into tomorrow, maybe we're poised to kind of push through those all-time highs near that 64 that I have marked right here. But yeah, that off of that initial move there, very, very strong continuation action on that Uber. But interestingly enough, as the market kind of pushes towards its highs, that 63 still holding on as a little bit of a sell there on Uber, as the ES and the NQ both kind of pushing up to the highs. Oh wow, take a look at that, Neil. I pretty much get stopped out on the reclaim of that 475, and it comes right in and potentially looking like it's taking aim at breaking the trend.
You know how you're gonna get that win next time?
How's that?
If you change the arrows so that the short sells are purple and then the buys are all green. So like, I'm gonna say it's like a uniform thing. It's easier to see on the chart because I look over and I'm like 40-something years old, right? So I look over and it's hard for me to figure it out.
Right now.
But it's just easier when you have the different colors. But that's a tricky trade up there on Meta. On Nvidia, the same way it was on Meta. Now the way I approach it is if I'm going to take a tight stop, it's because I'm trying to take multiple swings at it. So if my stop is going to be that tight, then I'm going to just get right back in when it wicks and find a re-entry so I can capture the move. To me, it's one of two things. Either you're giving it $1 when you trade Nvidia, or you're finding yourself a tight stop. But I'll get to Google in a second because I got a bit of a little back and forth off the even there. But there's some decent early look imbalances. Now in 10 minutes, you're going to see these all populate, and the real imbalances will come out at 350. But Snapchat is an early look buy of 7 million shares to buy on Snapchat. General Motors, 4 million. Bets is a penny stock, so who cares? And Visa always pairs off. So really it's those two that are standing out. General Motors, 4 million, and Snapchat, 7 million to buy. That's just an early look. That could easily get paired off come 350. I mean, it could show up and then we pair it off right away. Now, there's an obvious range being formed here in Google. It's a pretty tight one. It's about 20 cents. So I'm shorting the top into the quarter, and I'm trying to get out underneath. I mean, 32.10s is like the best fill I got on the last one, and the low wick here is like 04. So it's a very tight range on Alphabet. But the thing that's going is the market's at the high and it's relatively weak. So I want to give this one a chance, but it is a very tight stop here because it's only giving a 20-cent move. It's hard. You're not going to give it the extra 20 or 30 cents that you might do on a stock like a Google. Oops, I wanted that one a little bit closer to 10 there. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, you have to adjust to what the stock is giving you. It's the relatively weak name, so it's one I'm fading as the market is at those highs. And just one more thing before we take care of some business. How many times could I have done the same thing in Meta and wound up in the same spot if I didn't stop it? I could have done this like 8 more times on Meta, and I'd be in the same place I was before. I actually think this is probably going to roll over from here. But if it breaks the buyers, it looks like it's breaking those 60 buyers. Let's take care of some business, and I bet you we're at 333 when we come back here.
Brought to you by IG.com. Trade Forex pairs like Euro USD with spreads as low as 0.8 pips and 0 commissions at IG. Terms and conditions apply.
Okay, so not quite 333, but it got close. And at the same moment this rolls over, I get out at 25s or 26s, it looks like on Alphabet. So I don't have any positions on. Just to remind everybody, we do business as usual around here. Sean will be back tomorrow. He's getting a long weekend and enjoying some time off. We got to get our days in before the end of the year, as we're constantly reminded of this. Is what it is. Traders like to trade and like to be here. But we're still going to have the market recap show. I'll be making my way up to the desk in about 15 minutes. We got Brian Shannon on from Alpha Trends, confirmed that this morning. So as usual, we're going to give you the same show. We'll take some questions. We'll review some trades. We'll see what was strong or weak. A certain ETF got its butt kicked today. We'll talk about that to be sure. And then, of course, the rally in this markets. And, you know, it's a great, fantastic opportunity to talk to a great technician, Brian Shannon. So I'm looking forward to it. Join us. Don't go anywhere at 4 o'clock. We're going right on over to the desk. And door kicker, seeing any insight on Adobe? In terms of earnings, Adobe's after the bell tomorrow. So it's not as if you get anything on the excitement level of an Oracle today. But that doesn't mean you can't have moves. Adobe, I'd be at least... Is concern the right word? I don't know if concern's the right word. Is Turk going to load? Okay, there we go. It's starting to load up here. The concern I would have, maybe the weekly is going to put this point better. Oracle had the issue of running into a major resistance on a big, already a gigantic move to the upside, and then things needing to be perfect. Adobe probably has a little bit of that going on as well. This is a weekly, not a daily chart. So you can see, like at the beginning of the year, we were double bottoming off 300. We've doubled on Adobe. Like, this is a 300 to 600 move, and on the weekly, 700 is monster resistance. So it's breaking out the top today. I think the concern would just be, how perfect does it actually have to be? Slightest sign of weakness, and it's very reasonable you're back at 570. That's an easy place for it to go back to if you stair step it to the upside. So again, it's probably not what you want to hear, but that's 10% from where it is right now. It's not till after the bell tomorrow. So the good news is you get to see how it reacts to the Fed, which is going to be obviously no change, but it is what it is. You're still going to get some good price action. Maybe that can give you a hint of what people are feeling about Adobe at these levels. Super, super strong move. And if 570 doesn't even hold, like think about a 570 pullback, that's the 50-period moving average. 500 is gigantic, like out of this world support on Adobe. Like if you watch this the entire year off the $500 level, like if you look at this chart, if we see 500 next year and you're not interested in buying the dip at Adobe, at least be thinking about it when you see a key level, whether it's a day trade, swing trade, all that other stuff. That's what it's about. Jay Lee saying, is a much disliked company among users similar to Oracle. I expect they can quickly lose revenue while alternatives become real options. Shout out to you, Jay Lee. I mean, that's entirely possible. What I would tell you is, I generally look at, like I'm a trader, I'm not really an analyst. There's companies that I read up on because I own them, and I'll know a little bit more about them. But I leave it at that. Everything else is I'm just going to look at the charts and the technicals and sort of, like you always want to know, like, okay, what was the stock doing at the levels that matter, right? And I think when you talk about that 700 level on Adobe, that was like the irrational exuberance or whatever you wanted to call it, that recent high that everything fell off from. So when things get back to a level like that, that's a big deal for bag holding levels. Not that Adobe's a stock that has bag holders. But if it, I mean, anywhere near that 700, and there's people that are doing, probably, backflips and all that good stuff. With only 5 minutes to go till the imbalances come out, as I said, I'm out of Google, Meta. I don't know if I want to put something on when I got to get up in 10 minutes. If I battled, the thing about Meta, if I battled it enough, you're going to come out with the win if you short this level over and over again, but you just have to keep finding a different setup. I think there was one setup that was different from the 334 that I could have put on, and that's when it wicked to 334.50, and then the previous high was the quarter. So it came underneath, and this is hard to see, so I'll zoom it in. I can't go any further because of that wick, but right after it failed 50s, it then showed selling and a wick top at about 20. So you could have shorted 20s to 50 and been sitting in that trade. Even then, it's still only giving you like 2 to 3 to 1, which is not necessarily the best. But there was an opportunity to get a win out of Meta. I just try to keep it tight to the vest. I'll be happy that we didn't really give much of anything back on that stock. Like, it was very light because I was taking profit where I could and keeping those stops super, super tight. Microsoft is testing highs, rightfully so. The entire market is. I don't want to take anything long on a high break, but if there was time in the day, that's a pretty gorgeous look. If you get enough buying above the quarter, that would be a breakout all day. It was a tricky short for me in the morning because this is hard to see on a 3-minute, short out and then short into it. There's a stop out right here at 372 when I was in early. And then I finally got the move off of 372. I was able to hold it down to 71, but that's all she wrote. So it was like one good trade to make up for 2 bad ones early on Microsoft, but that's all you should need at the end of the day. Now it's a super strong stock that just continues to work and work and work. And you made a good point about Microsoft. Was it Microsoft?
About that 273 resistance? Or?
No, was it? Wasn't it like the senator or somebody was buying? Who was it? Was it Microsoft or was it Meta?
No, it was Meta. I don't think I made the point, but I think they were saying that Kathy Woods is buying.
No, there was somebody else. I thought we were talking about this at lunch.
Oh yes, Softy. Yeah.
It was Microsoft.
Yeah, it was Softy. I'm pretty sure it was Softy. Now correct me if I'm wrong. I read it in passing, just on an unusual whales post on the X that I think it was some senator or something bought like $5 million worth of Softy calls expiring next June. So that's pretty interesting. And it's something funny to note is that the time of those call buying was at a time where he was supposed to be in Congress. Like Congress was in session at that time. Very, very interesting stuff.
I got some wild rules in the U.S. Like, that's okay.
That's like,
if you're allowed to.
Yeah. I mean,
that would work. That would work.
I want to kind of go back to that point on. I think it was Adobe we were talking about not being I guess or thinking that the pressure is like unusual. You want to doubt the pressure, but here I don't know too much about fundamentals. I don't know too much about I guess the move that's happening here, but I can speak a little bit on Adobe's products because there are times where I do use them, and I think their more recent integration of AI into their tools like Photoshop, like Premiere, and other things from their Adobe suite has really changed up the productivity and the effectiveness of those applications. And I think maybe, just putting it out there, that maybe that sentiment is reflected here in the price action. Now, again, we talked about why a lot of, a lot of the beginning of this year, we caught a lot of bid off of the AI news. So I think a strong theme in 2024 has been AI. We've seen how some of those catalysts can move the market around, and with Adobe successfully kind of integrating those AI tools within their top products and it being almost revolutionary in terms of productivity and the time it takes to do certain things. Pretty solid on their part, and it's been only bidding up. I think Neil talked about it. It was trading at 300, now at 600 within a few months. So it's done 100%. This is a large cap tech name that's done 100% move within a few months just this year. So I think there's nothing weak about that kind of price action, in my opinion. But who am I to say anything? What do I know? Adobe, solid company and pretty solid products, in my opinion, from what I've used off of them.
Well, all you can have is your opinion. Hey, we just got the thumbs up from Fabian for. Yeah. Oh well, Fabian, I guess giving the thumbs up about it.
I'm sure Fabian knows as well. He's all over those products, right? So definitely, yeah. I think he would agree that it has been maximizing his efficiency. Like things that literally used to take a couple hours to do, take a few minutes now. So it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
By the way, Microsoft just made a fresh high.
Wow.
So there you go.
Okay, yeah, you were talking about that force.
Maybe that senator is buying a little bit more. I tried finding that tweet. I couldn't really find it.
Oh yeah, you know what?
I tried checking unusual wealth, but they're pretty active on the X.
Yes.
On the X. You know, I still can't say that.
Yeah, I stalled a little bit as well. I was like, Twitter, okay, X.
So the imbalances just came out. Let's see. Snapchat stays a buy of 7 million. GM stays a buy of 4 million. Bets is there every day. Who cares? BNS, 1 million to sell. What else we got going on here? Microsoft, sell 900,000 shares. Disney, 800,000 to buy. Palantir, 800,000 to buy. Cisco's a sell. That's not that big. PayPal, not really seeing anything, but I think Softy was the only one, like 900,000 on Softy. And then really it's about this Snapchat, which came out. I mean, we saw the early look. That's exactly what it was. Now, I like to leave the early look up because it reminds me, well, this was expected by anyone that was looking at it. Like if this had been 5 million and came out 10 million, I think that's significant. And I'd want to make sure I remember that. So that's why I tend to leave up the early look just for my own reference. As expected on Snapchat, if I had just jumped right back into the long, you could have had yourself a decent scalp trade there. On the early look just fed you probably 86 long with the stop at 83, and it's at 93 right now. That's not bad if you want to play off it. And you had some support as well. I was already getting out of Snapchat. I just want to be in this stock if it makes a run at 16 bucks. But with only 9 minutes to go, I think we are running out of time. As I said, I'll be up at the desk a few minutes early just so I can get ready. As I said, we got Brian Shannon. I know what he wants to talk about. You're going to like it 100%. I'm just looking over here at some of his ideas. You're going to love the discussion, to be sure. It's always fun trader talk. But wow, that was a good look on Snapchat. If you, VWAP bounce, support level, and the early look imbalance of 7 million shares. That is a lot to kind of work off of just for a gimmicky style trade. You're going to have a stop at 3 cents anyway, so why not?
Would you say that's some strong confluence?
Yes.
Nice.
I would say that is strong.
It's a lot of factors that are lining up for sure, yeah.
I love it. The thing is, like, you got to have we need like a confluence t-shirt for you or something. Because nobody, let's be real about it. Like, if you watch the show, nobody uses Confluence until they watch Trader TV Live when Obi's on. I know I wasn't throwing that word around in my everyday. That's for sure. And I use it all the time now. Like, I cannot help it. Like, I'll be at home. No, I don't. I was about to say I use it at home. I don't. I use it on the show because I like to steal things from people that are smarter than me and have better verbiage. And definitely Sharif and Obi have the better verbiage.
I'm the same way, man. Like that's I think I got that from like a book or like some like a different trader online potentially, but I don't remember. I like to give credit where credit is due, but honestly I don't remember where I got that confluence.
I'm gonna give you a hint.
Yes.
In real life, I love giving credit, but when you're having fun, it's just like whatever. You know You know how we You know what I mean by it. If I'm gonna take credit for it, even if I didn't say it, and then just have fun with it.
Like the flat bottom breaks, right?
Well, I mean that's obviously mine.
What was that?
No, sorry. Steve G just put something in the chat. Can I say that? Yeah, I can say that. No, it's fine. I just said, like, I like to, if someone has better verbiage than me, I like to steal their sayings. So he's like, no Biden quotes.
Oh.
Hey, whatever, man. If you got to be able to have fun with that kind of stuff. Like, we don't talk politics, but like when I was growing up, there's a program in Canada. You guys won't know unless you're Canadian. We have like a national, it's called the CBC or whatever. So they have a radio station, and there was like they had a program on Saturdays called Air Farce. And it doesn't matter who's in power, they make fun of everybody. Nobody is spared, and it's just one of those great satire shows. So I grew up, my dad would always listen to it. I would grow up listening. They'd make fun of the conservatives, they make fun of the liberals. They don't give a damn. They're just out there to have fun. You got to be able to do that. The world is a better place when not everyone takes themselves so seriously and we can have some fun.
Roger's saying we call it SNL. Fair enough. I mean, they take shots at pretty much everybody.
I don't know. I don't know that I would consider that. Like SNL is, I love SNL, especially old school SNL. But this is, it was a news program. But if you've never heard Air Farce, then, you know, like it's definitely pretty cool. Just with 1 minute to go till the early look, not the early look, until the imbalances might pair off. It was an overall $2 billion to sell. Not that the market cared too much about that. Meta just retested the high and is pulling back. For anyone that is still looking at individual names, that looks pretty good. I'd expect Snapchat has already, if it does, it hasn't paired yet, but I'm guessing it is going to pair off because it's already pulled right back into that support level. So I think in about 20 seconds, you'll see that 7 million on Snapchat go to like 3 or 4 because there's people getting out in front of it on good volume. Like look at the volume spike into that little pullback right where it was when everything started. Once I see that, I kind of want to see Snapchat, so I'm going to give it a couple of seconds. Once I see this pair off or not pair off, that would be interesting if it didn't, then I probably will get ready to go. No new positions on Snapchat. The early look was 7. It's now completely gone. Forget about going to 3 or 4. It just paired the whole thing off, apparently. So that was not incredibly surprising. I kind of thought it would do so. But the thing about that is it had already pulled back, so there's not much of a trade you can do. If it had been holding out right in front of that local high, maybe you could fade that for a couple of cents worth of risk and take the other side of it there. But anyways, shout out to everyone in the chat who found some luck in the afternoon. I'll be right with everybody that said should have just found a way to get into Meta on the long side. The best I can do is only trade at the key price levels. If you could just fight this the entire way and get yourself into trouble. But I had a couple of okay shorts at 34 and then the 33. Google was okay, but it was really more about the longs going into the tops, unlike Apple. You want to be in the trend if you can. That is always going to be better. Google did reverse as well. When I talk about having tight stops, you just do it, because if you just try to fight this, okay, maybe you get a pullback, you short the high again, and you get a pullback into VWAP, and you make it all back. But what's the point? Either it works or it doesn't work. Like, I'd rather just have it work easily for me. And if it can't be easy or simplistic in terms of a setup and risk to reward, or at least an out that makes sense to me, then I'm not going to put the trade on. Be willing to miss the trade to make the trade. As I said, we do have Brian Shannon coming on for the market recap show. I'll see everybody there in just a couple of minutes. Shout out to Obi, doing it not just in the last couple of days filling in for Sean, but whenever we get a day off. Like the way I see it, like I tell my daughter, it's like when I get to drop her off at school, she's like, "Who does the show?" And I say, "Well, everybody's uncle. You haven't met her yet, but everybody's uncle." I say, "Uncle Obi does the show for Daddy with Uncle Sean." And she's like, "Oh, and she likes you even though she hasn't met you, just because I drop her to school when you're doing the show. So she loves the fact that you're here for us." It's important because, you know, we need days off too as well, even if we don't always want them. And with that, I'll let you close it out there, Obi. I don't know if you're taking any trades going into the close, but if you do find something, good luck. Friday's the time for that.
Yeah, I think so as well. Thank you, Neil. Again, I really appreciate all the advice and the gold that you drop, and the trade reviews for sure, mint. Definitely appreciate that help there. But yeah, it's we're coming into the close with only about 3 minutes left, and it's a good thing I got out of that 475 short on Nvidia, as it keeps on blasting to the moon there. 476 coming in, and Softy as well. You can see a little bit of a volume candle kind of coming in to the push off of that imbalance. That 475 coming in real close, only about a point away, and the NQs kind of testing fresh highs going into the end of the day. So this is kind of what I was talking about. I was like, okay, are we going to continue to push up into the close, or are we going to take a little bit of a pullback, maybe some profit taking from the strong trend that we've had all day? And yeah, it's nowhere to be seen, kind of melting up into the close a day before FOMC. That's a very interesting price action coming into today. I think we have a nice and wide range kind of marked out. We have some CPI reference prices to kind of go off of as well on both the S and the NQ, and very, very strong tech. Oh my God, what is happening to Softy right now? I think the senator heard us, guys. Softy's melting to the upside there, kind of pushing right into that 375 resistance from before. But take a look at this volume that I'm talking about that comes in right there. Which candle is that? That's the 54 candle. All right, so just going into I guess off of the initial imbalance look there on in and around 350. So very strong push into the close, melting up into the trend. So let's see how far we can get going forward in the week. Now this is just the middle of the week. Tomorrow being Wednesday, we still have a few more trading days left, and a very strong. We're making highs on a Tuesday there. So let me know what you guys have been trading in the chat today. I'll take a quick look, but there isn't too much time. Only about 40 seconds left as I reach for the timer. I got to time this one right. So we weren't too bad in following the trend today. So I think I achieved most of my goals there. A little bit of a counter trend here and there. So still got to get much better at that. But otherwise, I think it was pretty solid. Trying to build that discipline, trying to build that awareness as well. Kind of you know, it's the shiny chocolate in the corner there. You know, you don't want to get too tempted by the counter trend, especially when it's really not in your favor there. All right, so here we go with only 10 seconds left for the close. 8, 9, so 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. A little bit of counting error on my part. Thank you, Adara. See, I'm even countering the countdown timer, so you know that's a little bit so that's a little funny there. So we do close near the highs there. So I hope you guys have had a solid trading day. Stocks only go up, guys, apparently. So today was a very strong day. Thank you for spending your time with us here. Now, thank you to everybody who makes this show possible, right? And without any further ado, I see that Neil's ready there at the big desk. Are we ready? Not yet? Okay. Okay, all right. So don't go anywhere, guys. Neil's at the big desk, and I'll be seeing you guys later this week. Have a good one. Take it easy.
Get right to it. It's the market recap. As always, it's a wild day in the markets. You saw what was happening all afternoon. The rally just continues. It's a bull market, everybody. If you can't tell, then you haven't been watching. Try not. The only fade you want these days is a nice looking fade that my barber usually gives me, or that you can give yourself, like I think Brendan does, because that guy seems to cut it. But you don't cut your hair anymore? Well, it seems like Brendan, I've always thought that Brendan, like, you can't possibly always have your hair done well. You must be doing it yourself. You're not going to the barber once a week or every other day. But anyways, my brother does his own fade. But that's the only fade you want. If you fade the market, do so at a key price level, do so in a weak stock, do so in something that has a catalyst. And we'll get into some of that when we come to talk about the trade review, because we'll get into that for Rivian. But just shout out to everyone. Is everyone starting to come in? Here's what up, Spark Shop. And also shout out to Obi there. I see, thank you, Eliza Rader, I think. Eliza Rader in the chat there saying thank you to Obi. Want to say thanks to Obi as well for closing out the show and doing a fantastic job the last couple of days. So if we're going to go into the market review, there's one thing that stands out today. Okay, well, I know we always look at these ETFs and like what was strong. Okay, IBB, SMH had a good day. You got the Qs up, well, XLF. You had some good rallying names. Look at the bottom here. Well, if you're in USO, UNG, or TAN, otherwise known as your solar names, yeah, it sucked to be you, energy. No energy in the energy names whatsoever. Now, when I sat down and was going through my prep, it was actually the worst on the TAN ETF. And I don't care what you want to look at individually. Like Enphase caught a bid at the end of the day on Enphase, so good for that on Enphase. I don't want to leave that in there. We'll just pop out the daily chart on Enphase. Like, it caught a little bit of a bid at the end of the day, but this has been bleeding all day long. Now, the savior for Enphase is that it actually got off the bid at 97 to close, almost retesting 100. So that's the reason TAN isn't leading the board to the downside, is the majority of those names actually managed to catch some kind of a bid. Now, it's not really smooth sailing for this ETF. Obviously, there's been some pressure on it to the downside. The trend is your friend till the end when it bends. I don't know where the bottom is going to be, and we've been talking about this for some time. We get questions about end phase individually, and I think that just happens to be the one a lot of people are paying attention to, but this ETF has yet to show a lot of strength. Now, there is a double bottom at 40, and were it to hold at 50 and maybe get back above the $50 level, I think that could look like a bit of a reversal with a lot of room to the upside. But when you're looking for something to catch a bottom, it is much better to join a higher low or a breakout setup off the bottom instead of trying to actually catch the following knife and make the bottom. It is very difficult to do that because the stock is in a downward trend. It's like trying to short the absolute top. Let somebody else make the top and you just join underneath it. That's much better, and it's the same thing for buying dips on anything. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't know what to tell you, but this is why I don't trade natural gas, people. Unless you find a good trend, the trend just seems to want to go one way here. Another fresh low for UNG. No bottom in, okay, there's probably a bottom somewhere, but no bottom in sight recently. This has been just failing on top of failing on top of failing. Lower levels all through. It was pretty much all of energy that was weak today, but there was a good look. Biotech, very strong day, leading the charge up 1.1%. I think it's got a lot of room to go. As a matter of fact, we were talking with Michael Noss last night, and one of the things he said is he was looking into some of those other sectors that he thought had some more room to run. Now that the move is getting a little bit more broad, you've got at least another couple of points to resistance on the daily chart here for IBB. I don't have to tell you about SMH. I mean, if you watch the show, you know what's up. This is up. AMD's up. AVGO is up. Nvidia's up. What the heck? Well, I think ARM wasn't up today, but who cares? I mean, ARM's having a great last couple of months anyway. So SMH, very strong move to the upside, leading the way. The Q's coming in at almost a full %. So you did have still a broad move, but it was very much led by the top end of the tech, which was not the case in yesterday's trade. So it was a decently broad move with the exception of energy. So we're pretty happy. A bull market's a bull market, and it should be a lot of fun. That's why everybody is generally in a good mood. The great thing about a bull market as a trader is if you have a bad day trading, well, then your savings did really well and your personal account did really well. It's when you don't capitalize when the market's weak as a trader that you get kind of upset. Because then you go home and you look at your RSP or your 401k and you're like, ah, crap, should have made money on the shorts. But that's another story. Gonna jump right into it because we do have, when we get to Trader Talk, we got the man himself, Mr. Brian Chen. It's my first time getting to chat with him on the show, filling in for Sean, so I'm pretty excited about it. Fantastic trader. Probably, like I'll tell it from my personal experience because I mean he's written a couple of fantastic books. Easily the best technician that I have seen in my 20 years. That I can at least say that I've been able to read what he's written and looked at some of what he's been able to impart in terms of technical analysis. You always want to learn from the best, and that's what we try to do here. In terms of trade review, I settled on Rivian today because I just felt with the way that the Rivian trade set up and the opportunity that it presented, it was the one that I wanted to cover. It doesn't always have to be about a winning trade versus a losing trade. Sometimes I want to talk about a losing trade more. I think you learn more from it. But Rivian, I still think Rivian is in a little bit of a mini breakout. However, it made the bottom off 15. You can see it breaking 18.25 here. But today was a different story. Now, caveat, 24 hours ago, remember Lucid? The CFO leaving, the Huadunk in the aftermarket, and then the follow-up at the open today. That's the context of where this started. When Lucid dropped, Rivian died. And it died off the open. It took out this $19 level and just completely flushed. Now, when you have a weak stock and you miss what is a gold setup, a breakdown, make the next trade. It doesn't matter what it is. Make the next trade. You cannot go back and find some opportunity and hope that it goes back and you go back in time or it goes back up to 19 even. That's not the way the market works. Find the next available setup, and when that setup hits, crush it. Okay, so what's the next available setup? Zoom out the chart to the 15-minute. There's my support at about 18 quarter to 1835. Look for a fade in that price area. Maybe it's not exactly at that support, but look for a fade in that area. It bounces, Rivian bounces off 1810. If you saw the morning show, I shorted 30s. I shorted again in the high 30s, in front of that, actually about 39, out in front of that local high. That was it. Go to the next important level. If it sets up a nice curl, take the next leg to the downside. Now it bottomed at 1775. I thought it could have got a little bit further. I trailed out when it double bottomed here. I don't know that it made sense to go into the long. At the time, I said no. Clearly, in hindsight, it was a long at that price, and there was even a scalp off the same level in the afternoon. There are going to be days where you see a gold setup or maybe a bias on a stock or whatever it might be, and at 9:30, you flat out miss it, but you know you want to be in the move. All you can do is look for a setup that makes sense after the fact. It might not be the same price. Don't just rush to short the stock in that situation. Look for a reason and a setup that you will like. Support to resistance is the most basic one for me. And in a trending stock, in a heavily trending stock, it's going to be an easy place to start with. That's why I wanted to get to this one for Rivian. The other thing, just because I have a couple of minutes here, I think, and let me know, Fabian, when we have Brian, because I don't want to keep the man waiting, to be sure. But there were other opportunities, and this is giving me time to go over Alphabet to be sure. Alphabet was not a difficult trade because it was the one that I was looking for. Pretty much, it was clean. Sometimes you're going to get a very clean move, and you have to take advantage of it when it happens. So just a couple of things. We closed at the 133 level, support 133, rejection fall at 133. And then you have like a tight reduction at 133 once again. Now I'm going to go to a 3-minute chart just to give you a better look here. Let me leave the daily because I like my dailies. Let's go to the 3-minute chart. I just favor a 3-minute chart, is what it is. So you had the 133 level at the open at 9:30. If a stock bounces into a key resistance level, let it get there. That's lesson number one. Don't get antsy thinking I want to short this move up. I don't think it can hold buyers above 133. Don't get short at 132.5. If it's strong off the open, allow it to get into your price level. And if you miss the trade, fine. Be willing to miss the trade to make the trade is one of my mantras. It gets right to 33, pulls right into obvious support at 131.50, and it's an easy short. You get a clean win. There was a reload for me off a lower high. There was more of a scalp trade than anything else, and that was it. You make that one trade on Google, Bob's your uncle, you can be pretty much happy with it. At least I was. It's a lot better than sort of fighting a stock at non-key prices. That's one thing a lot of people are going to do. 133 was a key level. You had lots of confluence going with it. It was underneath the previous close by about 30 cents or so. So there's a lot of reasons to look for that short there at the open on Google. Now, as I said earlier, had I looked at the Lucid chart, there is zero question this would have been my number one trade today. I didn't look at it, and that's a mistake. So I will completely concede. If there's two things that I have to go back and ask myself about. One of them is after the news in Lucid in the afternoon, why did I not just short Lucid when it failed 450 at the open? The second one, which I have to be accountable for, is we spent a very long time in the afternoon show yesterday talking about 40 on a firm, only to see it do this at the open on a firm at 40. So I missed this trade on a firm at 40. You can't catch every move at 9:30, but this or Lucid could have been the early ones that we had. When it came back into 40, take advantage of it. Had the 40 short the second time through. The best thing you can do, as I said, is to make the next trade there. So I just got the word from Fabian. We are locked and loaded, ready to go. You know who it is if you've been here before. We've got, I'm going to say it because I like to speak the truth. We've got the best market technician in the business. It's my first getting the chance to talk to Mr. Shannon live. So let's get right onto it. Absolute pleasure to have you here, Brian. And it's my first time getting to talk to you. I've read your work. I've heard others who I admire and respect in the trading business who talk very highly of you. I could go into a list of names, but I think it's pretty uncool to name drop. So we'll just drop your name in there. First off, how are you doing?
Doing well now, Neil. Thanks. And you know, I'm a fan of yours as well. We've got a confluence maybe of fan clubs here, to steal your word that you stole. So yeah, doing well.
I love it. I'm one of those. It's like I love hearing really smart quips, and then I'll give credit once, and then I'll steal it after that. But it's a lot of fun to do when you have a platform to do it. So this market is absolutely insane.
It sure is.
I mean, everybody, this is one of the best. This is a great bull run. There's no questions about it. And I think there's a couple of ideas that you were talking about. I saw you talking about on Twitter. But just in a general sense, before we get into like the nitty gritty and individual names, what is the best piece of advice? Because we get this question a lot. And I've actually asked Brian Noss about this. Mm-hmm. When you have a trending market or a bull market like this, and someone finds themselves, maybe they're not doing well when they're trading, despite the fact that it's pretty easy at the long side at times. But what's the one piece of advice? You have a lot of experience. What would you say to somebody if you're not doing well in the bull market? Is there one thing that they could maybe do? I get that question a lot. I'd love to hear your opinion about it.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, just realize that you're never going to be right on all the time. Think to all the time, you know, back in August, September, October, November, when maybe you were outperforming the market when everyone else was getting hit. And if you're underperforming a little bit here, it's more about consistency in any market cycle that we're in, not just how well do you do in this upward movement. Immediately when the market started rallying, I missed most of this first move, thinking, well, it's going to pull back a little bit. And then I slowly started to get involved, and that was a good thing. And I really kind of felt stupid there on December 1st when the market changed all at once. But then you've got to look at it and take each trade based on its own merits. Be careful not to get in that FOMO mindset and chase things and make these mistakes that can come back to haunt you. Now we're in a market now where there is no such mistake. There are no mistakes on the long side, it seems like. And this is the type of market where bad habits can develop. So just always maintain a level of consistency and focus on what you can focus on right there that day. Do you have a process? Are you honoring it in a disciplined way?
Well, I love what you said there. This is a market that can form bad habits. A trader on this floor actually, I don't know if he coined the line, but he used to say something along the lines of the market is more than willing to reward you for breaking your rules. And the worst thing that can happen is if you make enough money doing that, then when it stops rewarding you for it, you're really going to get hurt. So it's like in this market, you could be averaging into some ridiculous pullbacks that maybe aren't at the prices you want to, and the market's going to pay you off for it. But when that reverses, you're going to get hurt really bad. So I love that point. But I want to get to some of your ideas here because one of which, and I think we'll get to that one last, I'm not surprised with, but I'm interested in your take here on Hive. And yeah. So I'll let you walk through it because when I was sort of looking through some of your ideas and your notes, this is one that's sort of like, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to learn because I don't know that this is something I would have spotted as easily as you might have.
Sure. So Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the cryptos have had a huge run. And going into last week I got long some of this stock, I think right around this area right here, if I remember, 385, 390. And it was behaving well. I did take a third off initially, thank goodness, and pretty close to the high that day. I think it was $4.18, simply because it was daily R2. And then I held a 2/3 position. I actually suggested a stop right here at 398. I never set it, and I held the stock over the weekend. I was feeling pretty smart about that until Monday morning when it opened lower because, over the weekend, Bitcoin, I think, lost, 2,800 points or so. And I knew that was the risk coming into it, is that, maybe Bitcoin is going to lose some ground. I didn't think it would happen, though. So I was stuck with a 2/3 position as the stock opened much weaker. So when that happens, what I do is I look at the 5-minute time frame and I wait for the first 5 minutes. I wait for a low of that first 5 minutes to say, all right, if it breaks the low of the first 5 minutes, then I'm getting out of my swing trade, because what would have been my stop over here was already violated. Oftentimes the stock will, do something like this, but because this is basically a commodity related stock, Bitcoin being the commodity and the commodity was falling, it failed to do that. So I got out here for a loss, which, of course sucks and everybody hates that. But the news is, the good news is that I didn't continue to hold it down another 50 cents or whatever it is. So it's a good example that for a few things. One, I build it as it's a highly speculative name. It's holding above the anchored VWAP from that all-time high. We've got a sector movement going on, and here's a speculative little name that hasn't gone yet. A lot of people will tell you, we'll just stick with the leaders, and that probably would have been really good advice in this one when you look at, like how Coinbase held up. But I was kind of stuck in the mindset that I'm looking for new exposure, not to get onto a trend that's already this far stretched. So it all comes down to personal, preferences of what you trade, how you trade, but then coming down to risk management.
So for everyone out here and everyone watching in the chat, the reason we bring traders on that have different experience, better experience, different ideas, better ideas, is so you can learn something every single day. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm a day trader who I've made over 20 years, I've made some swing trades. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm great. I've had good ones. I've had some bad ones as well. But looking at that setup, I 100% would have stopped out when it violated at the open, and I wouldn't have held to see that first 5 minutes. Now, what you just demonstrated is, yeah, look, when you're making a swing trade, it might only be an extra 10 cents on a 375 stock, but allowing it to maybe chop up some people that would do what I would do if I was swinging it and saw it violate that level, which is just get the heck out and move on to the next trade. If it had bounced from there, well, you've just shaken out weak hands. And as a day trader, I can relate to why that is a good idea. And sometimes it's worth giving that extra 10 cents. So, thank you for pointing that one out. You learn a lot I think you learn a lot from losing trades and how you sort of approach them, because I think that sets you up for, hey, if it would have held that open after violating the 75 level, it could have been absolutely off to the races and even a better win than it could have been before that. So thank you very much, Michael. I absolutely love that look. The next name you have in here, ISRG, I believe we're going to. Now this one I can. I don't know if you wanted to go there or to NVIDIA, but intuitive. This one, I think you can intuit some of what you were looking at with this. I'm glad we started with Hive, but what's the look here on ISRG?
Well, so here's a 5-minute time frame, and let's just back it up for a moment, actually, to the daily time frame on the left, 30-minute time frame on the right. So I had actually gotten involved in this one on Monday, and today I brought it to the attention of Twitter. I'm not trying to front run a stock, obviously, with 1.5 million shares a day. I got out of a third of it yesterday. I purchased it at 311. I'm sorry, right as it got above this little peak right here. Sold my first third with a gain of $3 per share, and then my stop was going to be under here, which didn't get hit. So now midday or earlier today, it was at 315 and change, and I said, as it was getting back above the 1 and 2 day VWAP, I said, keep an eye on this one. So far it's trading an inside day. This was the range, and this is of course yesterday's range, so it was inside. But it got back above the 1 and 2 day volume weighted average price, and it was just up and away from there. So I'm liking it for the bigger picture, which it's breaking out of this. It held that rising 20-day moving average. It's making the higher high above the rising 5-day moving average yesterday, and that's where hopefully now I can continue to raise my stops up on this one, and this might be the case where I can hold it 3, 4, 5 days and see it make a really nice run.
So obviously, I mean, if you look at technicals, like that's your baby. That's why I think, like, I can look at that one and say I probably would have missed the trade, but at least after the fact, I think I'm going to be able to follow along with it. When it comes to holding for the bigger move, as you said, the bigger picture. Now I know you're going to follow anchored VWAP. I know you're going to look at some support and resistance, but I ask this of every single person I get to talk to that is a completely technical trader when they get into that hold phase. Is there ever anything in terms of the overall market, maybe individual news, an event in the sector? Is there something that can get you to adjust a trail or a profit take in something that has turned into a bigger hold? So you're past that initial move and you're kind of into the second phase of the move. Do you ever get off those technicals? And I ask this of almost every person I get to that looks at this kind of stuff on our trading floor, because it always makes me curious. Because some people will say no, there's nothing else except for the technicals.
I like to sell breakouts. So in this case, a lot of people might be considering this a breakout right here as it gets past this point. So as it does that, and people who are looking to buy the so-called breakout, they're 10 points late to this breakout. So I take that into consideration when I'm looking at the shorter term time frame. And my goal is to hold it as long as the market tells me to. Breakouts often are a place where the market will turn a little bit. So I might sell some into that strength tomorrow morning, or if it gets there, or on half of my balance, I might set the stop as tight as right here and give the rest a little bit of room. In particular, we've got the Fed tomorrow talking about a macro event. Well, that could easily, this stock could easily do something like this tomorrow on the Fed. And I don't want to be stuck holding it all the way down to break even. So if I get out of a third here in the morning, or half of my original, and then it shakes out and continues to make those moves, higher highs and higher lows, then I might raise my final piece of my stop up under whatever the morning low is, just to give it still some breathing room. But knowing that my cost basis is 311, I'd feel pretty stupid giving away a $10 profit in the stock. So I try to use the definition of trend, higher highs and higher lows, and raise it up underneath those higher lows as it unfolds. But sometimes you've got to give it a little bit more room, for instance, down to the week to date volume weighted average price, which is this thick blue line. So those are some of the strategies I like to use, Neil.
Yeah, that's what I love to see, and I was talking about this exact same thing with a trader, that you can put any trader, experienced trader, profitable trader, whichever, I don't know, however you want to say it,
Right.
You can talk to any of those types of traders, and if you ask them about, like, well, put them on the spot about what their exit plan is for their position, and they can riff the entire thing off in detail. And if you couldn't do that, then you've got to ask yourself about that process. I knew you would. I know, of course, you have a plan there. I love that look, and you're right about the Fed. One last question before we get up to NVIDIA.
Sure.
If that bigger shakeoff were to happen and you get a Fed bottom, I call it a Fed bottom whenever we have an interest rate day. But if you get a Fed bottom that coincides with the level that you like for an entry point anyways, would you try getting back in if it ends up holding tomorrow?
Not likely. I'm not that seat of the pants, and that's probably the wrong word, but I'm, let's say, not as skilled a day trader as you are. I need some time to let it set up, strategize, and see it unfold and anticipate what's going on, so that when it gets there, I don't rely on my emotions, because I know they're my enemy and they do get the best of me. So that's why I'm not much of a day. I try not to be much of a day trader, because I am not as good at it as I used to be. My attention span isn't there. So I like to be a little bit more strategic and think it out a bit.
That's fair. I had to ask. Obviously, that's what we do. So I look for levels like that on the Fed day, because we're obviously going to be in and out faster. But everybody always wants to know about who. The sexiest stock of the year. I mean, there's been plenty. I mean, it's not just NVIDIA, but what's your take on this? Because we get more questions about specifically the NVIDIA than anything else.
Yeah, so if people have been following my Twitter, I mean, I hate to be this guy, but I drew in exactly on this day right here, Neil, as it closed on that day. I drew a little sketch in that looked exactly like this and said basically that you want to buy it right here. And that's exactly what I did. So I'm long the video with a stop under here. I'm going to try to pull that Twitter up, because I wasn't, and I was very clear. I'm not trying to predict the market here, but it turned into be just almost a dead-on, picture-perfect outline of what would happen with this stock. So, whoops, I've got that chat in the way. So this right here is NVIDIA on the 7th. And I drew this line, this black line in to come up to the anchored VWAP from the peak of last month. Prior to just after the earnings, and then the pull back down through the 5-day moving average. And this is what happened. We ran up to that 0.1, pulled back to this 0.2. Today we got above this anchored VWAP, which was from the low of, you can see right here in October. And now we're continuing to move higher. And this is what I think the stock is going to do. Now, going back again to what about the Fed tomorrow? That's the key thing, is how much of this do I want to protect into that type of move? So if we look at that 30-minute time frame, here again, this is where, that green arrow was basically, or that green highlight saying, if it gets above there, to me, it's worth buying. I don't want to wait for that higher high because it'll be extended there. So NVIDIA, I think it's innocent until proven guilty. I am most likely not going to hold it below 467-ish for a swing trade. But if I get a nice cushion in front of the Fed tomorrow, then I'll try my best to hold it without hopefully, getting out early on a quick spike and, succumbing to the greed of the quick profit there.
Well, I don't have anything intelligent to add to a perfect trade that you more or less called exactly. You give us a nudge every now and then. I'm glad you put it on Twitter, which you don't always have to do, which I think is fantastic. We try to talk openly about setups and the why. But I will say this. This is my one piece of advice along those lines, is when you have a good call, or it's more like a good setup and an A+ and a good idea, make sure you put the trade on. Especially when you're starting out. I talk about this with traders when they start. You've got to get something in there. If you're hesitant, just go min, like whatever it takes. You've got to take your A+ setups, and I'm glad you had that one. Best of luck, of course, tomorrow. It's a Fed day. Anything can happen, but when you got a winner in the bag going into it, it definitely feels a little bit better there. Brian, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you, Brian. Brian Shannon, CMT from Alpha Trends, the #1 market technician in the trading business. I've been doing it for 20 years, and everybody says exactly the same thing about you. So it's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Neil.
Take care. Well, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, come on, we got a bull rally in the markets, good trading day. I get to talk to Brian Shannon, who, let's be honest, when you read certain trading books, and he's got maybe a couple of the best ones that I've heard, you actually read one good trade, and the praise that Brian gets in that is actually pretty spectacular as well. If you haven't read, that's also a good book. But anyways, let's get right into it. I know that whole thing where the time has run out on me always happens when I'm filling in for Sean. So apologies for that, but we're geeking out. We're getting good information from Brian. Now it's time to get into the roll call. You know what up. Starting with Bears versus Bulls. We don't say enough. You're the best moderator in there. And I'm opening with you today. Thank you so much for everything you do. What up there, TH? Give my regards to Kurt Angle. Okay, why not? Alex Davis, what up? Paulie D, you're not Paulie D. You're still D's to all of us. You know why. Sailor Moon, Andrew Chow, Darwin in the house here. We got Rich Naples, Tom Trades. They're all saying thank you to Brian. I'm saying thank you to all you. Dino Might, getting that last second. You're always spinning right before the stream's about to end, trying to catch that last win. I love it. I appreciate you. Jacob, Prania. We got Howell Capital, Mike Pena, Chef Joe in the house. You know what's up. Trader Forever, Roadblock. No roadblocks in this market to the upside. That's for damn sure. Nick Dubs. We got John Von Sowers in the chat. That just sounds like, let's be real, like you got some money. When you get one of those Baron type names, I like it there, Mr. Von Sowers. Your Huckleberry. I'm a big fan. Doc Holliday, the greatest character in TV history. Bonkzilla, Professor Love, Lolo, Roland Joe, Ama Hamada, Elon, Trade Trigger, everybody in here. D-Hole Cuts, not bad. TH, Dynamite, that's twice for you, but I love it so much. Dynamite. API, shout out to you. Royal Dixon as well. Howell Capital, we got you. Juan Padilla also getting a last spin in. Good luck with that. Shout out to everybody that had fun the last couple of days. We're in a bull market. Remember, tomorrow is the Fed. So we have a plan of action for the Fed. We're going to go over it. Sean's going to be back. We'll wax poetic over the same plan we put on for a Fed day every single day, which is be patient, trade the best setups, trade the key prices. Shout out to everyone in TraderTV Live universe, and thank you to the entire team. Thank you to Obi for filling in for Sean last couple of days. We're going to see you bright and early, 8:30 tomorrow morning on a Fed day. Let the bull run continue. Bye, guys.